going to talk a lot about drills and fundamentals.
Watch it, watch it, watch it, watch it.
On 93.5
Watch it.
and 107.5.
Boom, baby.
The Fan.
What? Everything okay over there, Mark?
Making a ruckus over here.
I mean, get in here this morning all fresh and ready. Even like Kevin's all propped up. We're ready to go. And Mark's over there throwing stuff around.
Yeah.
Do you ever leave the house? This happened to me this morning. I get halfway here and realize that I wear a ring and a watch every single day. For whatever reason, forgot to put them on today. And now it's like I feel naked.
In panic mode. Where are they?
Yes.
I do that too. Sometimes I'll forget to put my wedding ring on, and I'm like, uh-oh. And like I wouldn't think much of it, but then it's kind of been on you forever, and you forget.
Why do you take it off?
Like when I do my hair or something, or if I take a shower.
You do your hair?
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't? Well, there's product in there. What are you talking about?
I've never done your hair. That
Well,
is
not
correct.
my hair. Your hair definitely's got something in
And then
it.
all these women in downtown Indianapolis just flocking to Mark Dykton without his ring.
Yep.
That bachelor with great hair.
So I try to tell Ashley, I'm like, you better hang on to me. Be nice.
I thought you throwing all that stuff around. It sounded like me late last night with the Notre Dame game.
Boy, how about that? Tough one for your Irish last night, right?
Brutal. I'm not one that, at least I don't think I'm one that, moans and complains about officiating. You know what I hate in college basketball is the old flagrant one. I feel, you go to the monitor, and anytime the guy has the elbow, whatever, above the neck area, Notre Dame, a horrific call against them late in that game. Mike Bray was irate, really, with the officiating all last night. Nothing like the head coach that knows he's not coming back to the conference and just roasting the officials post-game. Screw it. No repercussions whatsoever. We got a B, or, he didn't even. He's like, I wish we got the A crew tonight. We clearly didn't have the A crew, but
now,
I've got the replay on for you if you'd like to watch in the background.
Oh, is this it?
Yeah.
Right here?
Mm-hmm.
Allow me to ask a really dumb question.
Man, the
Kevin.
ACC network's really struggling here.
I have a really dumb question for you. Did Mike Bray announce, mid-season or whatever it was, that he is retiring from coaching or simply retiring from Notre Dame?
Yes, stepping away from Notre Dame. I think there was some chatter that he could have some interest in the Georgetown job.
He would be. Has Georgetown fired Patrick Ewing yet?
No, I don't. The Big East tournament starts to. Well, I don't know. Did Georgetown? Does the Big East tournament include everybody? I would assume it does. No, they have not made that announcement yet. But Mike Bray, a lot of ties to the D.C. area. So again, if I were him, I'd just take a year off and figure out if you still have that, drive and desire to coach in a, day and age in college basketball, which is a whole lot different than, how Mike Bray thrived at Notre Dame for the better part of 2 decades. It is a beautiful Wednesday morning. I mean, look at that. That is cotton candy. That is peak section nice. 204 Pacers game. They're selling cotton candy right there. Beautiful start to this Wednesday. And Mark, all Jake needed was a little kick in the butt.
Yep. Look at what happens. A
little kick in the butt. Sorry I had to go public with it, but I did with Shane Steichen on Friday. I had to go public with it. I thought, maybe they're a little delayed. Maybe the liquor stores are not fully stocked. Mark followed through.
I was telling you how I was trying to find a very specific beer for you.
Yeah, that was amazing. You said you went to multiple liquor stores. And then walking in today, after some taxman action for Mark, Jake with a trifecta, very a little bit of a sentimental value to the trifecta of beer from Jake Query today. A 6-pack of Rolling Rock bottle. Thank you.
Well, Shane Steichen comes from Philadelphia, which Rolling Rock, I realize, is Western PA, Yuengling more Eastern PA, but it's green, so
I like it. A 4-pack of Wee Mac, which I stated, Sun King. We talked about that with Shane Steichen and Peter King last week. Wee Mac, my favorite Sun King beer, and then last but not least, of course, PB bleeping R.
That's right. That's right.
As the Pacers take the court tomorrow night in their effort for 30 wins and appease the bank account of Kevin Bone. So thank you to both of you. I guess it's not about the
You should have enough
timeliness
beer
of
to
it.
last you for like 2 months.
I was going to say, Maddie's going to be like, I need some fridge space. Can you get this out of here?
Literally, I'm like, all right, let's see if we can fit the produce around all the beer in the fridge. So a little delayed, but nonetheless, thank you to both of you. You guys went above and beyond.
You're welcome.
I didn't realize this. And I realized that if you want to buy it cold, the liquor store is the place to go. But when you really want variety in your beer options, a big grocery store is actually your better option. The liquor stores are predominantly, wait for it, liquor, and not as much just beer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'd say certainly the bigger grocery stores, you can get some fully stocked shelves with that. So.
By the way, before we get into the show, and we got a lot to talk about this morning, including some. Dave First actually sent me a text this morning at 6:02 a.m. The fact that Dave First and I are texting each other at 6 o'clock in the morning shows the maturation of the two of us. With a very interesting Indiana University basketball tidbit. Very interesting tidbit that he sent me this morning, which we'll get to coming up later in the show.
Present-day relevancy?
Yes, very much so. The Australians are coming in for the Indy 500. My Australian buddy Michael, he's bringing 6 friends. So 7 from Australia are coming for the Indy 500. And he texted me last night. He's bought his tickets. And he texted me and he said, make reservations at St. Elmo for Friday night. Now, how do I break it to him that it is impossible for 8 people to get a reservation at St. Elmo Steakhouse the Friday before the Indianapolis 500?
Yeah, your last name probably needs to be Manning to pull that off.
Not going to happen.
Also, when I think of Carb Day, Jake, I probably don't think about ending it at St. Elmo.
Also, and St. Elmo is fantastic, right? But yes, you are correct.
Doesn't really match how I view Carb Day.
You are correct.
I can think of a lot of other places that I would be venturing to cap Carb Day than St. Elmo. This from Carlton. Asked Jake if his ring and watch are sitting next to the NFL Combine credential.
Here's the thing. I only have one NFL Combine credential.
Very good, Carlton. Pat yourself on the back for that
solid.
to start this one.
I have 23 watches. That's the ridiculous. Right?
Unbelievable.
You'd think I'd have been able to remember one of them.
23 watches. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They all
got to go to Switzerland to get them done.
As Jake said, it is a loaded Wednesday on the show. I'm excited about the guest list. Stephen Holder joins us at 8. Obviously, Stephen joins us every Wednesday from ESPN.com, but he got behind-the-scenes access with Anthony Richardson throughout the Combine here in Indianapolis. And I think it's obviously great insight into clearly the one prospect that turned heads more than any other at the NFL Combine. So we'll talk with Stephen about that. A week from today is free agency. Officially, the new league year begins. So a whole lot to get to with Stephen, not only on the Anthony Richardson front, but on the Colts free agency side of things as well. Mike DeCourcy going to join us at 9 from Big Ten Network. Zach Edey, Big Ten Player of the Year. Any surprise? I'm a little surprised we didn't see co-coach of the year. I thought Matt Painter and Chris Collins should have split that.
That's fair. I think that Matt Painter...
Chris Collins got the solo coach of the year.
Yeah, I think Matt Painter is kind of victimized by his own success, right? I mean, now it's like, well, they're supposed to be good.
But it's not
really
like
I
people
know.
thought they would be, a top 3 or 4
totally
team
agree,
in the Big Ten.
but what I'm saying is when Purdue is atop the Big Ten standings, you're like, well, Purdue's usually in that area. I think people don't stop to realize everything that went into that specific, season itself. He did a heck of a job, undoubtedly, but so did Chris Collins.
And how much does Purdue need this week to secure a number 1 seed? Do they need to get to Sunday? Do they need to win on Sunday? The contingency plans at the committee and the final bracket with the Big Ten championship being 3:30 on Sunday. We'll discuss that with Mike DeCourcy. And then Matt Miller, you have heard him on these airwaves before. He is an ESPN draft analyst. He was here for the entire week at the Combine, so we'll chat with him about his thoughts on the quarterback front. And, a name that I've kind of forgotten about, but I am curious where he ends up going, considering there's so much chatter on the first 4 names.
Can I guess? Oh, this is a quarterback in the draft.
Yes, quarterback.
Not a prospective free agent.
In the draft, yes.
The kid out of Tennessee?
Yeah,
Hendon Hooker?
Where is Hendon Hooker going to go? You've got age and you've got an ACL. You've got a guy that put up really absurd numbers when healthy at Tennessee. The offense, I think a lot of people would call it, just a hair gimmicky, and I know there is that fine line of like, well, you need to adapt your NFL offense to what these guys are doing in college. Tennessee seems to be super drastic in what they're doing. It might be a little bit harder to kind of marry some of that with an NFL system, but Hendon Hooker is I think, he's going to be an interesting name. And, as much as the first four might have a little bit more intrigue, you can point to some second rounders that have had success in the NFL. Jalen Hurts, of course, being atop the list. So we'll chat with Matt Miller, ESPN draft analyst, coming up at 9:30.
Third round?
Oh, no, I think he'll be second.
Do you really?
I mean, we always see quarterbacks get pushed up the board. And if all four of them go in the first 10 picks, that's a long time from 10 to, 50.
Who was the last quarterback that you can recall, Kevin, that the combine catapulted them into top 10 status? Because I think you could say that about Anthony Richardson to an extent, right? I think Richardson was in the conversation as a possibility as joining this party and amongst the top quarterbacks. But once everybody physically got a look at him and watched him, then it's like, wow, okay, he's very unique. And that kind of cemented him, I guess. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, and to answer your question, I know it kind of sounds as a bit of a cop-out, but I don't know if we have a great example of it, because the combine is so much about...
Oftentimes it's about finding out reasons not to take a guy.
And a lot of that, is neck up. It just finding out who that person is. And from a testing standpoint, and this is the debate we'll get into here over the next month and a half when you think about the Colts, if these four quarterbacks, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson, if they were four linebackers, so let's just take their height and weight and equate them to linebackers, Chris Ballard would not even sniff Bryce Young, and he would take Anthony Richardson 10 days out of 10. Does that apply to quarterback? I think there's more to a quarterback, certainly, than just height, weight, and vertical jump and 40-yard dash and all of those things. But that, I think, is what is so interesting about how the Colts will react to this. How do you view quarterback when you compare it to other positions, specifically with the Colts? Because Chris Ballard has been so stringent on testing numbers, measurables, those sorts of things. Again, from a collegiate standpoint, still a little bit quiet on the conference tournament front here locally. Butler will play today at 3 o'clock. They've got St. John's in the 8-9 matchup out at Madison Square Garden for the Big East tournament. Butler, 5.5-point underdog in that one. And then the Big Ten tournament does get underway tonight. Ohio State, Wisconsin at 6:15. Minnesota, Nebraska at 9. We'll carry both of those games on our airwaves. Indiana could play Minnesota or Nebraska in their Big Ten opener on Friday. The winner of Minnesota-Nebraska gets Maryland tomorrow night. The winner of that then gets Indiana at 9 o'clock on Friday. So 2 Big Ten tournament games from the United Center. Jake, the 6:15 game, Ohio State, Wisconsin. Should I be keeping an eye on that one for the next coach at Notre Dame?
Wow. That's a good question. Who have you heard? I mean, I'm assuming that you've probably looked around at different reports.
Yeah, the short list is Brad Stevens, Jay Wright, and Rick Pitino.
Fair enough. Who is? Have you heard any names?
Why did you laugh?
Mm-hmm.
Storied, beautiful campus.
Brad Stevens coming out of you.
I believe his wife's looking at a house in the Granger area right now. I
saw Billy Donovan at the Walmart down there in Bloomington.
A popular name was actually a guy that clinched a bid to the tournament last night, Pat Kelsey with Charleston, a former Skip Prosser assistant, if you go back to the Xavier days. The Drake coach, Derek something or other. They made the NCAA tournament winning the Moval. Micah Shrewsbury at Penn State.
He's a good coach.
Local product, Cathedral grad.
He is a good coach.
Coached around the state. So,
where do you think, Kevin, that the Notre Dame basketball job ranks?
I don't think it's very good.
You know what I mean? Like, is Notre Dame, from a basketball coaching standpoint, is it considered a better job than Penn State? Probably a draw, right? I think Notre Dame has a little more history to it, but in terms of the league you're in and obviously both football schools.
As much as the transfer portal is so advantageous to many schools out there, it really is a bit of a disadvantage to Notre Dame. When you think about a credit standpoint, transferring into Notre Dame, they are, with basketball, I think pretty stringent in what they're going to allow there. So it's not just like free agency as it is, I think, for other programs. And then the ACC, what's your recruiting fertile ground? Like, do you have a pipeline to any sort of area? Because you're so isolated from the conference from a geographic standpoint. Mike Bray was able to tap into that Washington, D.C. area, given his roots there, coaching at DeMatha High School, playing at DeMatha. But I don't view it as a top 30 job in college basketball.
Let me tell you one thing I think is interesting about the transfer portal. And I don't know that there's any way to tangibly, financially, know this. But take Miller Kopp. When we had Miller Kopp on the show, and I'm like, well, how does it work that you're a year and a half from graduating at Northwestern, or however many credit hours he was, and then he transfers to Indiana. So theoretically, I mean, you lose some credit hours. Not every class transfers, so I can tell you that, having been to, more colleges than most people probably can even think of. But so which is a higher value, Kevin, for your, and I realize at the age of 20, it's difficult to think about life at the age of 45. But are you better off navigating through the business world and going through life as an Indiana basketball player? The cachet that comes with that of I played basketball at Indiana and how long that helps you in the business world in the state of Indiana primarily, like for Miller Kopp, or having a degree from an elite institution like Northwestern?
Well, I would think the Northwestern degree opens you up to a little bit more of a nationwide, potentially international pipeline, whereas you probably need to concentrate on the 812 area code if you want to have longevity from an IU baskeball standpoint. That's what you think about, and I realize that it's difficult to think of that as a young person, but I mean, you've got a chance. Like the Notre Dame theme that they try to preach endlessly from a football standpoint, it's a 40-year decision, not a 4-year decision. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, though. There is. I know it's very cliche, but I do think there is a lot. I mean, if you have a degree from the University of Notre Dame, that is just the prestige in that from an academic standpoint is a lot more than saying, like, yeah, I got a degree from Kansas State. Yeah, I don't think saying that you're a Notre Dame basketball player would help you out a whole lot in the professional world. We have an internship for you at the Fan in Indianapolis. Yeah. Well, you can play for our intramural team. They play at the Y every other Tuesday night. Again, Big Ten awards announced yesterday. Zach Edey, Big Ten Player of the Year. I do not have an issue with that. I found it interesting. Purdue didn't have I guess I'm not too surprised by it, but Purdue didn't have a single player on the second or third team. It just shows you even more was on Edey's plate, where, if you get into a Trayce Jackson-Davis debate, you obviously had Jalen Hood-Schifino with you. The coach's first team, Terrence Shannon from Illinois, again, Trayce Jackson-Davis, Zach Edey, and then rounding out the team, Chris Murray from Iowa, Jalen Pickett from Penn State. Jalen Hood-Schifino was second team, all Big Ten, and of course he was freshman of the year. The Edey Trayce Jackson-Davis debate, it's a good one, right? But I think what you just said there, Kevin, about the narrative or the outside perspective is that Edey is a guy that was more of an anchor, which is crazy to say because Trayce Jackson-Davis has been phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, in what, 98% of Big Ten seasons, Trayce Jackson-Davis is the Big Ten Player of the Year. Correct. It's just wild how both of those years have unfolded for each of them. A lot of NFL chatter we can get into today. Lamar Jackson, that news yesterday. The franchise tag, the exclusive franchise tag being put on him. So that involves some teams to potentially make offers to Lamar Jackson. Now, can you explain for folks that don't know what the exclusive franchise tag means? Yeah, so it's a $32 million franchise tag. So next year, $32 million for Lamar Jackson. If you want him and he signs your offer sheet, you have to send Baltimore 2 first-round picks. That's the price. It doesn't include the type of contract then you would have to hand Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has chosen not to be represented by an agency, and I think he views the Deshaun Watson contract from last year of all the guarantee that went with that, and he wants that. And right or wrong, I think what you're going to see from the NFL is owners banding together here and saying, we strongly disagreed with what Cleveland did last year at the quarterback position. And I would be very surprised if Lamar Jackson garners the similar type of contract that Deshaun Watson got.
Do you have to match? So Lamar is going to make what this year?
$32 million is the franchise.
Do you have to financially match that?
Yes.
So he is making at minimum 32. So a team can't come along and say, hey, Lamar, here's the deal. We're going to give you 75 over 3 years, but we're going to guarantee it. And can he then say, I'm gone? Or does Baltimore say, sorry, you didn't match what we are paying him?
Baltimore can match. They have the ability to match.
Well, but that's less than. What I'm saying is the number that Baltimore put down, $32 million, right?
Right.
Does that mean that in order to acquire Lamar Jackson, you have to pay him at minimum $32 million? Or does that mean it's up to him on whether or not, hey.
I mean, I guess you could offer whatever you would want. I'd assume Baltimore, if you're going to offer the low, Baltimore
in other
would
words,
match.
in restricted free agency, you have to match financially the offer. Do you have to match the offer as well, or do you simply know that if you can entice him to come your way, you have to compensate Baltimore?
Match. It's like the DeAndre Ayton situation.
Okay.
This past year.
Right.
The Pacers sent that offer sheet, DeAndre Ayton signed that offer sheet, Phoenix then matched, and he was retained by the Suns there. It is kind of crazy when you look at it and think what Russell Wilson went for last year. Like, somebody could get Lamar Jackson for 2 first-round picks. Russell Wilson went for 2 first, 2 seconds, and like 2 or 3 players.
And was done.
But was also a lot younger.
Forgot to check
a lot older. Then it's interesting to me that Lamar Jackson would cost so little compared to Russell Wilson.
Right.
Financially.
Agreed.
That is a big element to it. I have said before, in terms of the Colts, I would be worried about paying Lamar Jackson so much guaranteed money into his 30s.
Because that's the thing. And Lamar Jackson has been a transcendent player. I mean, he is a phenomenal talent, and kudos to Lamar Jackson. He has thrived at a position where, unfairly, a lot of people thought he wasn't ready. Bill Polian, he's a receiver. He's not even a quarterback. He's been he's an MVP. He's a great player. But I think that Lamar Jackson, so much of what he does, and he is obviously able to throw the ball, but so much of what he does, I think, is predicated on defenses having to be honest because of his legs. So as soon as those go away, which inevitably happens at some point. Or
just deteriorate a little bit.
Correct. That's what I mean. As soon as he goes from being a 100 as a runner to a 98, then you have to wonder if water finds its level eventually.
Starts to chip away at his effectiveness. Obviously, the injury situation from last year is something you would have to acknowledge. But again, I'm going to be extremely curious to see how all this unfolds. If you're a Colts fan, you would love to see him, I think, go to the NFC with how many quarterbacks are in the AFC. I do think there was something interesting, franchise tag related from yesterday. We can get into again with Stephen Holder coming up at 8 o'clock. The Colts did not use the franchise tag. I don't think anyone expected them to. You did see several running backs get the franchise tag. 6 players in total got it. 3 of them running backs. Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, and Josh Jacobs. I don't think the Colts would do this, Jake. But if I were running the show, I'd look long and hard about letting Jonathan Taylor play out the final year of his rookie deal this year and then slapping the franchise tag on him next year. So you're going to get Taylor for 2 more years. That would help the rookie quarterback out.
Okay.
But you're not committing long-term to him, and then you could maybe reassess after the 2024 season.
I'm trying to think. It's hard for me sometimes to remember specifics. I'm trying to think if there was somebody in September or October that laid out whether or not it would be in the Colts' best interest to look at perhaps replacing Jonathan Taylor with a younger running back and not paying a second contract on him because of the devalue of the position, and then saying it on the radio, and then literally everyone saying that person was a total moron, has no idea what they're talking about, and that Jonathan Taylor deserves a massive payday in contract number 2.
Is there really that many people that think that paying Jonathan Taylor is an absolute no-brainer?
I think there are.
Really?
According to my mentions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to act like it's 90% the other way, but I think, and maybe it comes from me always being a believer of you don't draft a running back till day 3 of the draft. I just think that's how you treat that position nowadays. But I don't think the Colts would go down the path that I just talked about, but I do think that's something to explore internally. Now, with the Giants doing that with Saquon Barkley, that obviously comes out of them giving Daniel Jones the deal that they gave.
How about Daniel Jones, man?
Him yesterday. And Daniel Jones falls into that category, Jake, of is he Ryan Tannehill? Is he Kirk Cousins? You know, he's in that purgatory. And do you want to go back to hell if you get rid of him? Or do you think there's a chance to move up the ranks? You know, it's just a awkward situation for the Giants. Part of me understands it. Part of me is like, that is a huge amount of money to pay him, but it's not like they're sitting there with a top 10 pick.
Yeah,
Jeremiah.
For a guy who had one all-right year,
I know,
good Lord.
But again, that question becomes who else?
You could even make the argument of one half an all-right year, right? Like, you could kind of see when it all came together for him.
Does Brian Dable say, hey, that's what we did with 1 year with him. What can we do with more years with him? We can, further develop him. Might be wishful thinking. Jeremiah asked, do the Colts go for Jackson? I think they do and draft another player position. I'd be surprised if they went after him. And, when he says draft another player position, again, Jake, you got to give up 2 first-rounders. So you wouldn't have the number 4 pick. You wouldn't have next year's first-rounder. Those would be off to Baltimore.
Could the Colts even afford that contract anyway?
I think you can be finicky enough that you could make it work, but given how penny pinching at times they've been, I would hesitate with that.
Another thing, and I know we got to get to the check down, but the thing about Lamar Jackson that I think, tell me if this makes sense, Kevin, probably not. Lamar Jackson is a guy that if you were looking for a quarterback, if you know that you are transitioning to a younger quarterback, you're going to draft a young quarterback, and he's going to sit for a year and he's going to learn. I don't know that Lamar Jackson is the person that you want in the tutorial position, not because he's not seemingly a great leader and a great player, but Lamar Jackson's style of play is so unique that I don't know that how many traditional quarterbacks can learn from it. Because
if you trade for Lamar Jackson, there's no young quarterback. I mean,
understood well, but in the Colts case,
Lamar Jackson's your quarterback of the future because the number 4 pick goes to Baltimore.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so you're not sitting there in the top 5 anymore.
Yeah, I guess you're right in that regard. I just, but there were people that asked like in the off season, hey, did the, before I guess the tag. I mean, somebody just asked me, do you think the Colts kicked the tires on him for him to be the guy? And I guess you're right. You would not have him in the Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz type. Carson Wentz wasn't that role.
He wants a fully guaranteed contract. He is your franchise quarterback
for 6 years,
without question. If you were to make that move, Colts finalized their coaching staff yesterday. A couple of interesting tidbits from that we can get to as well. Again, Stephen Holder going to join us 8:00 behind the scenes with Anthony Richardson at the Combine. Mike DeCourcy talking Purdue's run for a number 1 seed at 9, and then Matt Miller, ESPN NFL draft analyst, recapping the Combine with us. Kevin and Query, cotton candy's gone above Riley Towers. Supposed to be another chilly Wednesday here in Indianapolis. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
The Ride with JMV.
Joe Lenardi joins us. Where do you have the Boilermakers?
They're going to be still a 1, but they're running out of wiggle room.
Where do you have the Hoosiers?
Hoosiers will be the number 13 overall team on the board, so that's good for a high 4 seed. And because Purdue is not ahead of them in the South, they will be in that Louisville path.
The Ride with JMV.
Weekdays 3 to 6
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Shop Grand Appliance for the lowest prices and up to $5,000 back on top appliance brands like Electrolux. Learn more at grandappliance.com. Grand Appliance, experts since 1930.
Do you need furnace or heat pump service and need to find a local well-trained expert you can trust like Reinhardt Heating and Cooling? Well, find that American Standard dealer at IndyHomeComfort.com.
Mom, Dad, Sis?
Here we go again.
Why are you in a suit? Picture, if you will, a world with the best network imaginable. I'm talking about the Xfinity 10G network. Go on. Mom, remember how your reality shows wouldn't load with all of us online? Now you can binge. And Susie, we'll have fast internet in the basement.
Nice.
If you have any questions, here's my card.
This is just your name on a gum wrapper.
Introducing the 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. Now through March 21st, new customers can get 200 megabit Xfinity internet during our limited time Xfinity 10G network launch celebration for just $25 a month for 2 years. Plus, there's no annual contract required and you get Wi-Fi equipment included. Go to Xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and autopay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and devices. Actual speeds vary.
One day, former Pro Football offensive tackle Mitch Schwartz just happened to walk into Diamonds Direct with his wife, Brooke.
The store blew us away. We both got back to the car after. We were like, oh my gosh, we didn't realize that this awesome store was right in the middle of Overland Park. And there was a huge selection.
Today, Mitch and Brooke are frequent shoppers at Diamonds Direct.
Oh, Brooke is very happy about her jewelry. Every few months, we make our way to Diamonds Direct, and there's another 3 or 4 pieces that catch her eyes.
What they love is there's never any sales pressure at Diamonds Direct. In fact, they often end up spending less than they expected.
We want to make sure everything's tasteful, everything's done right, and that's another advantage of Diamonds Direct is they're not just going to sell you the largest thing, the most expensive thing that you'll buy. They'll find what fits your finger the best.
Are you shopping for that engagement ring or that romantic piece of jewelry for the one you love? Wander into Diamonds Direct, like Mitch did, and you'll be blown away as well.
Diamonds Direct is great, and it's just a great place to shop.
Diamonds Direct, your love, our passion. Get directions, store hours, and more at diamondsdirect.com.
Get ready for the madness by signing up for the Twin Peaks Bracket Challenge and receive free chips and queso. Head over to TwinPeaksBracketChallenge.com to register and learn more. And no one does happy hour like Twin Peaks. Whatever your preference, they have everything from tequila cocktails and an extensive bourbon category to top shelf spirits and cocktails served over ice balls. Local craft beers and handcrafted whiskey cocktails round out an adventurous drink menu that's second to none. And don't forget about the 29-degree man-sized drafts.
Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
It's not easy being the one everyone counts on to keep your operation running, no matter the weather or supply chain hiccup. But we get you, Raymond in Buffalo, Maria in Miami, and Jules in Troy, taking control of everything that's under your control. At Grainger, we're here for you with high-quality supplies for every industry, plus real-time product availability and access to experts ready to help. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hi.
Who's this?
Buzz. He appears whenever you eat Honey Nut Cheerios.
Like a genie?
Sure.
Ooh, does he grant wishes? I wish I lived in a giant boot. No, I wish I could swim with a humpback whale. No.
I can grant you a delicious bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios, which can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet.
Ooh, with heart shapes, too.
Happy heart-shaped Cheerios are back for a limited time. Pick up a box of Honey Nut Cheerios at your local store for an easy, delicious, and heart-healthy start to your day.
Progressive asks, what do a diehard fan watching the game at home?
With 4 seconds left.
A poorly placed good luck candle.
Don't let me down, candle.
Kick is up.
A last-second improbable win.
It's good!
Yes!
And flammable sports-themed curtains have in common?
Oh, jeez, whoa!
They can scorch your big win high and your beloved sports memorabilia.
Not my unwashed 1997 game-worn jersey! This is what dreams are made of!
Bundle your home and auto with Progressive for great savings and round-the-clock protection. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.
The basketball and hockey seasons are heating up. Baseball is just around the corner, and nothing beats seeing your favorite team live. Not only does Vivid Seats have great ticket prices, they're also the official ticketing partner of ESPN. And with Vivid Seats rewards, when you buy 10 tickets, you get the 11th free. Download the app or visit vividseats.com today. Vivid Seats. Life happens live. Receive a reward credit equal to the average price of the 10 tickets purchased, excluding taxes, fees, and processing costs. See vividseats.com/rewards for terms and conditions.
Whether you own a local business or a global one, you're always looking for ways to position your operation to create opportunities and move on them faster. With Bank of America, you get access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter. Locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2023 Bank of America, N.A.
At Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, we're not just good at insurance. We're good at Dillon's Jam Session Truck Insurance.
Where the backwoods party and the diddle-de-doo.
We're good at Ben's Hype Machine on Wheels Insurance.
You a boss. You were him.
And we're good at Ethan's SUV with surround sound insurance.
Dad, it. Play Johnny Johnny Apple Pie.
You got it, bud.
Start with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance and stop knocking on wood.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Last night in college basketball, Kevin Bowen thought to himself, well, the good news is Mark Dykton delivered the beer, and Jake's going to deliver it for me tomorrow. Bad news is I might need it right now. Virginia Tech 67-64 over Notre Dame. The Irish season coming to an end at 11-21 in the ACC Tournament.
I'll be at the next game, Kev, I swear.
You think they're on the bubble?
That CBI is like, how much you guys have in the hopper from your football program?
They lost 10 ACC games this year by 2 possessions or less.
Yeah, I got news for you, Kevin. You might as well get blown out because they all count the same, right?
Sure. Yeah, they were up 5 like 3 minutes ago and then blew it in typical Notre Dame fashion. So their season is over. Mike Bray, they are at Notre Dame. Hell of a run, 23 years. That is over. Butler today, 3 o'clock, Big East tournament. See if Butler can keep their season alive. 8-9 matchup with St. John's. They split with St. John's in the regular season. I would assume a lot of Red Storm faithful in the building, right? Madison Square Garden?
Are there Red Storm faithful in New York City? I mean, I would assume so, right?
5.5-point favorite St. John's with that one. And then tonight on our airwaves, the Big Ten Tournament gets underway. Ohio State, Wisconsin at 6:15. I think the winner of that gets Iowa. And then Minnesota, Nebraska approximately at 9 o'clock. The winner of that gets Maryland. And the winner of that game then gets Indiana coming up on Friday. Again, Purdue, noon on Friday. Indiana, 9 o'clock.
Speaking of Indiana, I have a ranking where Indiana scored extremely well in terms of good news for their college basketball program that I'll tell you coming up just a couple of minutes.
You play taps in your home after a Notre Dame loss? Like when the season's over, you fold the socks and you put them back in the drawer? And
I'll be totally honest. I had a couple sniffles.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, think about your fandom. Mike Bray and what he did for Notre Dame basketball was a huge, huge part of some great, great moments. We're going to have Jordan Cornette on Friday. Is that
Friday,
correct, Mark?
Yep. He was on the call for the game.
He was on the call last night.
Which one of you guys wants to tell me last night who was the leading scorer in the NBA? 2 guys.
Devin Booker.
3 guys, actually, looks like. Devin Booker is an excellent guest. Did Phoenix play last night?
I was going to say, I don't even know who's
I guess I should probably look at the schedule.
Last night in the association, 33 for Kyrie Irving. Mavericks over the Jazz, 120 to 116. Lauri Markkanen had 33. Markkanen had 33 for Utah, by the way. So there's another 33-point scorer. You say Joel Embiid?
Yeah, I know they played.
Did Philly play last night? Okay, Joel Embiid.
TV.
Nice, Mark, 39. 117-94. Sixers over the Timberwolves. Also with a 33-point outing last night, I can never say his middle name. Alexander for Oklahoma City.
Gildress.
No, it's Gilgeous, right?
No.
I can't say it, but I'm going to correct
How did you say it? How did you say
Shai Gildress Alexander.
There's no R in there.
Shai Gilgeous Alexander.
It's Gilgeous Alexander. There's no R in there.
But you just said you couldn't pronounce it, and then you yelled at me.
Shai Gilgeous Alexander, 33.
I think Miles Turner was just like drinking some wine,
It's a
watching
silent
the
R.
76ers game on the couch, and be like, see? Happens to other people, too.
Yes, that's exactly what he was doing, actually.
Looks like Steph Curry was the high man last night. 40 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists.
Well, I don't see the
Thunder beat the Warriors.
Oh, yeah, he did have 40.
128.
Okay, there you go. Well, sorry.
That was a very
Apology
very
accepted.
well done NBA segment there on the Checkdown. Bids clinched last night in NCAA tournament up at the fairgrounds. It was the Northern Kentucky. They've had a nice run since joining the Horizon League. They clinched Charleston and Oral Roberts. Those are 2 teams that I believe are both in the 30-win range.
Good news for teams on the bubble last night, right? Because there were no bid stealers in those leagues.
Oral Roberts undefeated regular season in the Summit League, and then, of course, the tournament. And Gonzaga beat St. Mary's.
Boy, they blew them out,
All
man.
of a sudden, they're starting to climb back up 3, potentially a 2-seed line. So Gonzaga, once again, going to be a very highly seeded
It was cool to see Drew Timme
team.
celebrate his 40th birthday with a conference championship.
Yeah, is he coming back for a 9th year? When we come back, Jake will share the IU
courtesy of Dave First
thought. And again, we'll get into the Colts coaching staff. Some interesting names on that list, interesting backgrounds as well. in a week from free agency with the franchise tag not being used for the Colts. So what does that mean? We'll explain coming up next here. Kevin and Query, 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
The Pacers welcome the Houston Rockets to the Fieldhouse tomorrow evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The winter blues are almost behind us, and we can't wait to get out of the house and be more active. That sounds great, but your achy joints don't agree. Well, time to do something about it. It's Kevin Bowen. You could stop with the steroids, stop with the possible surgery chatter. Now there's a better way to get lasting relief, and it's from QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. This exciting approach uses healing properties from your own body, highly concentrated, and then placed directly into your achy joint. It can restore and repair that damaged tissue and get you moving again without pain, knee pain, back pain, shoulder, hip pain. This patient satisfaction reports are incredible, and there's no downtime. You can learn more about this wildly popular, all-natural, alternative way to get lasting pain relief with no surgery and no drugs via QC Kinetics. The call is free. The consultation is free. 317-559-PAIN. Locations at Eagle Creek, Greenwood, and Carmel. A free consultation. You got nothing to lose, and the timing is right for you to enjoy the best time of the year. QC Kinetics, 317-559-PAIN.
Dream homes come in all shapes and sizes. And at TCU, we believe borrowing options should too. There's no one-size-fits-all mortgage. Let our knowledgeable team pair you with your perfect loan solution while you pick the perfect pairing of paint colors for your new place. Plus, save up to $1,000 on closing costs, which means more money for the fun stuff. Together, let's make it yours. Welcome home with TCU. NMLS number 686706, federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Opportunity. All loans subject to credit approval and membership requirements. Offer details at tcunet.com/welcome home.
Snoop Dogg presents
This legendary is brought to you by the D.O. Double
High School Reunion Tour with Wiz Khalifa, Too Short, Warren G, Burner, and special guest DJ Drama. Ruoff Music Center, July 20th. Pre-sale for City Card members available now through Thursday at 10 p.m. before the general public, on sale Friday at 9 a.m. at livenation.com.
Discover credit cards automatically double all the cash back you earn at the end of your first year, which means... Wait, hold up. Question for the audio engineer.
Go ahead.
Did I read that right? Discover automatically doubles all your cash back?
Yeah, that's what the script says.
So if I get a Discover card right now, I can earn twice the cash back.
Apparently. Wait! Unlimited first-year cash back match, only from Discover. See terms and learn more at discover.com/match.
Why have over 2 million people trusted their bath remodels to Bathfitter? When a normal day is anything but normal, we fit your schedule with our unique tub-over-tub process installed in just a day with no demolition. When high quality is the only quality that matters, we fit your standards. We've been remodeling baths for over 35 years, and every bath we install comes with a lifetime warranty. Get the bath you want in a day with quality that lasts a lifetime. Bathfitter, it just fits. Visit bathfitter.com to book your free consultation.
Sister Hazel. Live at Four Winds South Bend's Ribbon Town Conference and Event Center on Friday, April 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Performing hits like All For You, That Kind of Beautiful, Champagne High, and more. This is one show you won't want to miss. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. It's Sister Hazel at the new Ribbon Town Conference and Event Center at Four Winds South Bend. Your entertainment escape.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering professional-grade industrial supplies, plus real-time product availability and access to experts ready to answer your toughest questions. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone, America's #1 brakes destination. We have the pads, rotors, drums, shoes, and brake fluids to improve your stopping power. Right now, save 15% when you get any 2 Duralast rotors with a set of Duralast brake pads. Missing a tool? Ask about our free Loan-A-Tool program and borrow the tools you need to get the job done.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Claim based on data from the MPD Group 2021. Deposit required for Loan-A-Tool.
Hi. Who's this?
Buzz. He appears whenever you eat Honey Nut Cheerios.
Like a genie?
Sure.
Ooh, does he grant wishes? I wish I lived in a giant boot. No, I wish I could swim with a humpback whale. No.
I can grant you a delicious bowl of High Nut Cheerios, which can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet.
Ooh, with heart shapes, too.
Happy heart-shaped Cheerios are back for a limited time. Pick up a box of Honey Nut Cheerios at your local store for an easy, delicious, and heart-healthy start to your day.
Hey, it's Big Joe for Absolute Comfort, your trusted independent American Standard air dealer. The owner is Chris Wedekin, and he sells the ductless Mitsubishi Electric Mini Split, which is an extremely efficient and cost-effective way to heat and cool your space.
If you're looking to lower your carbon footprint and you're looking to try to get something that's more energy efficient, that works well with solar panels or something like that, these are the perfect solution.
Find out more at AbsoluteComfort.org. Absolute Comfort is your trusted independent American Standard Air Mitsubishi Electric Elite Ductless Pro dealer.
Listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I will officially declare right now at 7:46 in the morning on a Wednesday that if Oasis ever actually reunited to play a concert, I will go wherever the concert takes place and be there to see it in person. That is like a life goal right there.
Front row in Manchester. Jake
That's
Query.
right. Did you ever narrow down your Guns N' Roses where you're going?
I think it's going to have to be. The problem is
they're all weekdays.
Correct.
That's what we went over before. It's like Wrigley Field's a Thursday night.
I think it's probably going to be Hershey, Pennsylvania. Speaking of watching things, I have before me, very interesting, according to the Sports Business Journal, Dave first sent this to me this morning, the top 15 most viewed college basketball games of the regular season. Would you like to guess, amongst the top 15, how many games involve the Purdue Boilermakers? Kevin Bowen.
Well, let me throw in, I guess, first, I assume this was done before Notre Dame, Virginia Tech last night.
Again, regular season games.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Mm-hmm. How many involved Purdue?
Yes.
Let's go with 2. Let's go with both the Indiana games.
1. Purdue and Indiana on February 4th. That would have been in Bloomington, correct?
4 o'clock tip, right, on a Saturday afternoon?
Yep, on ESPN.
Boy, Purdue got those tips out in Portland, I feel like, were at midnight, all 3 of them. The Gonzaga game, the Duke game, some of the other marquee ones they had earlier this year over Thanksgiving weekend.
Which team appears the most in the top 15 ranked, the 15 highest viewed games? Which team appears in the most of those games?
Well, I mean, you got to think Indiana's close to being up there, right? If based off how you asked it, I would say Kentucky. But again, Indiana had Arizona. They had Kansas, both Saturday games. I guess I'll go with Indiana.
Indiana appeared in 2 of the 5 and 3 of the 7 most highly viewed games of the college basketball season. Indiana and Michigan State on January 22nd was the 4th highest viewed game. Michigan and Indiana on March 5th on CBS was the 5th highest ranked game of the season.
So that's the key. Put Indiana on CBS, right?
And then Purdue and Indiana 7th.
Because the Michigan State game, I think, was a CBS game, like a Sunday afternoon or maybe a Sunday at noon, if I'm not mistaken.
Which one?
The IU-Michigan State game.
That was also a CBS game, yep. Now, Kentucky appears more than anybody else, but Kentucky's highest-ranked game was against Michigan State. That puts them 6th. Then 8th, UCLA, Kentucky. 10th, Kansas, Kentucky. 13th, Kentucky and Arkansas. And 15th, Auburn and Kentucky. North Carolina, Duke was 2nd. North Carolina, Duke, and then Duke, North Carolina was 3rd. If either one of you, and I'll give you real quick before we move on, I'll give each of you 3 guesses off the top of your head. And if you get the number 1 most viewed college basketball game of this past regular season, if you can name either of the 2 teams that were participating, I will right now, just like we did on Friday when I missed an hour of the show, I will miss an hour to go out and buy you the breakfast and then like the case of beer of your choice. Mark 3 schools.
Alabama.
Okay.
Clemson. and Gonzaga.
Okay. Kevin Bowen.
Boy, I have no idea. Shamana.
I'll even give you it was a conference game. It was a Big East conference game.
Creighton, Nova, and Providence.
I'm not leaving because I gave you the hint. DePaul and Creighton was
What?
the highest ranked college basketball game of the year.
What time and what channel?
Here's the kicker. It was on Fox, but it was on Christmas Day.
When you read off those games, pretty much all of them are conference games that you read off.
You're
it
right.
just shows you how college basketball.
The
during
only
the
non-conference game would be Kansas-Kentucky, right?
Which, if I'm not mistaken, I think was played post-January, and I guess that's what I'm getting at. It's
January 28th.
You have these non-conference games, Kansas, IU, Arizona, IU, but they're during football season.
Yeah.
So nobody watch. Nobody watched them to the degree that
they're also during
those other games.
Like, when did Arizona play Indiana? Wasn't
Like a
that
7 o'clock on a Saturday.
But wasn't it mid-December?
Right.
People are doing stuff, Kevin.
Sure.
During the holidays, it's like, the holiday party, or we're going over to so-and-so's house for the Christmas get-together, or I'm shopping, or we're going to Chicago for the weekend. People have things going on.
Shane Steichen completed his coaching staff. It was announced yesterday. 8 new names on the staff besides Steichen. Couple of things that I found interesting. No one comes over from Philadelphia. If you go back to his Chargers days, outside of Gus Bradley, the only any sort of crossover there is an assistant O-line coach by the name of Chris Watt. Notre Dame fans will recognize that name. He played at Notre Dame. Just miss playing with Quentin Nelson by a year. But you don't have the Eagles-Chargers connections, I think, naturally when you hire a new head coach, you think, oh, yeah, let's just go back to the former team he was just with. Very young on offense. Everyone's under the age of 45, many of them under the age of 40. Jake, if you look at the 5 position coaches Shane Steichen has hired, so quarterback, running back, wideout, tight end, O-line, those 5 names, including Reggie Wayne the only holdover from the Frank Reich staff on offense, those 5 names have combined for 5 years in the NFL as their position coaches. So it is a very youthful, inexperienced offense. I like the college background and some of the innovation that you see with some of the youthful names on offense, but on offensive line, that would be the one area that I have concern. Tony Sperano Jr., again, his father was an NFL head coach. He is the new O-line coach. That, to me, is a position where I almost feel like some of those veterans could use a kick in the ass from someone that's been in the league and kind of walks in that room and has instant credibility.
Yeah, I get that.
Maybe it'll be great. Maybe it'll work out well. But that was one area where I was like, and they don't even have it in the assistant O-line coach. I thought going veteran there would have made a little bit more sense.
Who is so give me the name of the staff again. All the names. Just read them off.
Oh, wow. Everybody?
Yep.
Okay, offense coordinator, Coach Cooter.
Just the names is cool.
Gus Bradley, Brian Mason, special teams, Cam Turner, quarterbacks, DeAndre Smith, running backs, Reggie Wayne, wideout, Tom Manning, tight end, Tony Sperano Jr. is the O-line coach, and then defensively they bring back all of their position coaches. So that includes even guys like Cato June and Mike Mitchell, a couple ex-Colts.
So Gus Bradley is the veteran in the room, right?
Yeah, I think technically maybe his linebackers coach, Richard Smith, has been in the NFL a little bit longer, maybe even Ron Milas, the DB coach, but Gus Bradley clearly has the most fanfare of any of these names. Again, the special teams coordinator is Brian Mason, came from Notre Dame, Zionsville native. He takes over for Bubba Ventrone.
My thought. X's and O's are really important. Jimmy's and Joe's are more important. Got to get them players.
Yeah, certainly got to get them players. I do think, coaching matters in the
Of
NFL.
course it does.
I think in a league that has so much parity, that can be the difference. And, think back to just a couple years ago. I know those names might not offer a whole lot of, relevancy right now, but there I am at the Combine last week, and 4 of the 32 coaches in the NFL were on the Colts staff just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
it's crazy how these people can evolve so quickly and
also,
become
man, what a gig.
household names.
I kid you not. You get in the NFL and you get to the point where you are a position or whatever coach in the NFL, and you make it through 2-3 years on a roster or on a staff. It's a revolving door, man. What a gig. I would love it. I would love to be a coach just to collect all the gear, right?
You going to commit yourself to those hours?
For that gear? Sure.
So Reggie Wayne, Cato June, Mike Mitchell, the 3 ex-Colts, all of them are back for another year. Aaron asked about John Fox. John Fox now in Detroit.
Which franchise would you, if you collected all the gear, would you least wear, do you think?
For the Browns.
No occasion just to wear a bunch of orange stuff.
It's Halloween again for Kevin. Pass them out to Rosie's class. You guys all want to wear orange today?
I also wonder if, like, the Jaguars, are there coaches that are like, can I get on another staff? So,
at least it's kind of a cool-looking animal.
It is.
Stephen Holder, behind the scenes with Anthony Richardson at the Combine. We'll talk about that next here. Kevin and Corey.
It has no beginning.
The start of something special right here, man. Let's go.
And no end.
Look, you got to get your team ready to play.
It is a constant.
Get a rhythm going.
Through every season.
Come back again.
It is always Colts season. Firing, hiring, free agency, the combine, the schedule, the draft, OTAs, minicamp, training camp, kickoff, the offseason. Questions is a season to be answered for this Colts team. The best Colts coverage is on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The best audio entertainment is on Audible. It's the home of storytelling with audiobooks, exclusive originals, popular podcasts, and more. All in one app. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com.
You had a solid retirement dream. Sell your home in a few years, bank the equity, downsize, and travel, but inflation and recession has you wondering if all your hard-earned equity will still be there. What if you could recession-proof your equity right now? You can do that with TrueHold. TrueHold will buy your home for its best current value before a recession can erode it. Get to bank all the cash now and live in your home for as long as you want. And TrueHold covers all property taxes, insurance, repairs, and maintenance. And since TrueHold pays your home's current value in cash now, it's yours to do whatever you'd like. Don't wait for inflation, recession, and interest rates to erode your home's value. Visit TrueHold.com and discover how much TrueHold will buy your home for today based on its best current value, not what's coming. So call 1-855-300-9993 or visit TrueHold.com, the smarter, faster way to cash out on your home's value without having to move. That is TrueHold.com.
Need new tires? Skip the long appointments and bad coffee. With Go Mobile Tires Indy, order tires online and have them installed at your home or office. GoMobileIndy.com. We come to you.
Spring in Indy. And since 2001, Rhino Shield has been covering Indiana homes and businesses. Just ask Mike.
I was watching TV one night and saw the Rhino Shield ad. And I thought, well, if they can do a house, they can probably do a building.
And Rhino Shield's not paint. It's better.
So they came out and they gave me a price, showed me how the Rhino works, how it lasts, and how the guarantee works.
Business owners, you too can get the 25-year protection of Rhino Shield right now for 15% off the regular price.
They started on the building. They waited for us to leave, and they worked Saturday and Sunday so they wouldn't affect our business at all. This was the great part of it. I came back Sunday night, and you couldn't even tell they were here. There was no paint on the ground. They did a fantastic job.
Here's owner Shane Smith.
This offer is limited, so call me at 888-RHINO-41. That's 888-RHINO-41.
Don't paint.
Don't vinyl. Go Rhino.
Paint, don't vinyl. Go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
A horrific car accident left Paula with major injuries and surgery after surgery.
I got to the point where I really couldn't walk. I had to resign from work. I was really just laying in bed. It was terrible. I would go back under the knife.
She missed working and traveling, but all that was about to change. QC Kinetics used natural biologics to treat Paula. No foreign substances. They provided regenerative treatments that helped subside the pain and restore her quality of life.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I was feeling more movement and doing stuff. And then I start crying. I'm like, I can't believe it.
For Paula, this moment was extremely emotional.
I couldn't do nothing. And now I'm working, and I was on my feet for 7.5 hours, and I feel good. I got my life back because of QC Kinetics.
Call QC Kinetics now for your consultation.
Call QC Kinetics, 317-559-PAIN. That's 317-559-PAIN. 317-559-PAIN.
Hey everyone, it's Jake from Payless Liquors. We have a few new items to keep an eye out for. The new White Claw Vodka Soda is available in wild cherry, peach, pineapple, and watermelon. Jack Daniels and Coca-Cola canned cocktails, and High Noon tequila seltzers available in strawberry, lime, passion fruit, and grapefruit. Charlie said sell it, so we have great prices on Jim Beam regular and flavored 175s for $24.89, Jameson 750s for $24.99, Miller and Coors Texas 12s for $13.99. Get more, pay less at Payless Liquors.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. Thinking about gas mileage? If your check engine light is on, it may be affecting your MPGs, but the free AutoZone Fix Finder service can help. With the most complete free warning light report backed by technician-verified fixes, you'll know what's affecting your gas mileage and more, and you don't have to drive too far to find the fix. The free AutoZone Fix Finder service is available at all 6,200 stores.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
See details at AutoZone.com.
Indy's #1 for new country.
I got some famous friends.
Nobody plays more new country. 97.1 Hank FM. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
WIBC HD2 W298BB WIBC HD3 W228CX Indianapolis. The Pacers welcome the Houston Rockets to the Fieldhouse tomorrow evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
So our next guest, Stephen Holder from ESPN.com, had a pretty cool NFL Combine experience, and that was behind-the-scenes access throughout the week with Florida's Anthony Richardson, who obviously put on a show at the NFL Combine. And Stephen joins us now here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Stephen, I want to know everything about your experience with Anthony Richardson, but as someone that is just curious about, how that even comes about, just kind of walk us through how and what type of access you were granted with the home run of the Combine.
Yeah, I think these things always boil down to relationships. And so obviously I don't know Anthony Richardson or did not know him. But I did have a pre-existing relationship with his agents, both of them. And, just from previous dealings with previous players and stories I've worked on. And so I figured, hey, why not? Let's see if we can maybe figure something out that might be unique. We're always trying to find different ways to cover things that are kind of old and stale, like the Combine. And this is one way to do it. So basically, I said, look, I just want to be a fly on the wall. I won't get in the way. Let me just kind of hang around and just kind of see what I can see. And I figured something might come out of it, not necessarily knowing at the time that he would do some historic things through the week. So that's how it came about, and I'm glad it worked out.
What was, Stephen, for you, and we'll get to Anthony Richardson in a moment, but in terms of following around a prospect at the Combine, what was a procedure or a process that was the most eye-opening or surprising to you in terms of what they undergo throughout the course of their time here?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and I did kind of know this, but it's a very vivid reminder, is just how much they are pulled in so many different directions. There's so much going on. All right, he gets on a flight, I think, and leaves Florida at 5 a.m., or excuse me, he gets up, I should say, at 5 a.m. last Tuesday, right? He flies into Indianapolis, and he's going until 11:30 that night with team interviews and other matters that have to be dealt with. And he's up the next morning early, same routine, interviews, medical exams, and then all this happens, and then he's got to get a workout in at the end of the day because, by the way, you have to stay conditioned and stay sharp physically. And so that's another late night. We're walking back to the hotel, the Players Hotel, on Wednesday evening, and it's around 11 o'clock, and this kid is dragging, okay? He's just dragging. And he's like, I'm so tired. He's like, I'm going to sleep so well tonight. And you can kind of really just feel it's just like any of us who have had a long day, it felt like that, except this is the biggest week of his life, right? You know, this opportunity that he has. So I think it just really drives home just how much they tax them mentally and physically. I actually think it's very intentional so that they can see whether they can handle it.
And Stephen Holder with us, ESPN.com, his latest behind the scenes with Anthony Richardson at the Combine. Again, I want to focus here for just a second. When you look at the Colts, Stephen, in regards to Richardson, and you look at the AFC right now, the AFC is loaded with great quarterbacks and young quarterbacks. Do you think at all the Colts view this as, if we want to compete in this conference and compete at the top of this conference, we need to swing for the fences. We need to try and get the freakiest of athletes, the highest potential, because if you want to survive in a conference with Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, etc., and they've already played deep into January, into February, we've got to take a huge swing. Could you see Chris Ballard having that sort of mindset? And then obviously Richardson would be the guy that I think would speak to that more than any of the other quarterbacks.
Well, look, I mean, I think their thinking is still fluid, probably, but here's the thing. What you are saying is undoubtedly true, and they have to at least acknowledge the reality of everything you just said. Look, I think are the two best examples, and I've shared this with JMV the other day. I'll repeat it here. You have, in 2017, the Kansas City Chiefs, they trade up significantly, right, from the bottom of the first round to number 10, go get Patrick Mahomes. I know at the time it was kind of, whatever. But I think we don't give them enough credit for not only identifying Patrick Mahomes as the next thing, but also being aggressive and going and getting him. That's the part that I think we need to talk about. So they did that, and they've obviously been rewarded handsomely. Now, go to a couple of years ago. The Philadelphia Eagles, they draft Jalen Hurts, but it's not that. That's not the biggest decision they made. It was the decision to say, we are $50 million in on Carson Wentz, and we don't care. We are going to say, you're gone, and Jalen Hurts, after like 5 starts, is going to be our starter. I mean, that was risky, right? That was risky. But they saw something, and they had conviction, and damn it, they were right. Okay? They were unquestionably right about that. So I think those are two examples that the Colts and, frankly, a lot of teams should look at and say, swing hard, swing for the fence, because there's lots of middling quarterbacks out there. I mean, look, I think Derek Carr is a good quarterback. Do we think the New Orleans Saints are going to be in the Super Bowl next year? I certainly don't. If I'm wrong, I'll eat my words. But my point is, if you need someone special. They have to be special, I think, at this point. And the just completed Super Bowl is a perfect example of that.
You think Anthony Richardson's camp believes he'll last past pick number 5?
They think that everything's on the table, including the top 5. And it's impossible to know, right? But I will tell you this. I learned enough last week, spending time around him and learning, what the level of interest is and from where. I learned enough to be thoroughly convinced he's in the top 10 for sure, in my opinion. You never know for sure. Let me rephrase that. I think he's going to be in the top 10. I think he could be in the top 5. That would take, obviously, some real conviction by someone. But I don't think it's off the table. I think the best example is Trey Lance. A couple of years ago, going to San Francisco, it's something that Anthony Richardson said. He says, I only need one team to really be sold. And Trey Lance is the greatest example of that. I mean, we spent months talking about, I don't know, this guy, he's an FCS player. they didn't have a full season because of COVID. We don't know anything. And he goes number 3 overall. We still don't really know anything, but that ain't the point. The point is, if we're talking about where he's going to be drafted, I think Trey Lance is a great example of when a guy has tantalizing skills that teams really, really get tempted. I think that's a very similar example to what we're seeing with Anthony Richardson.
Stephen Holder, by the way, is our guest. ESPN.com is where you can read his work. He's on the Payless Liquors hotline. Let me read you the name of 10 quarterbacks, and I want you to tell me that there's a reason that these 10 quarterbacks jump out to me, okay? Mark Sanchez, Scott Zolik, Chris Sims, Nick Foles, Heath Shuler, Ryan Mallett, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Cody Kessler, Dak Prescott, Jim Druckenmiller. Now, do you know what those guys all have in common, Stephen? Aside from relative underperformance as professionals?
Is it that they were pocket passers?
Those are the 10 guys that had the largest hand size and showed as the best measurables in combine history at the quarterback position. Not all of them, but I think you could make the argument. Scott Zolik certainly comes to mind. Heath Shuler absolutely comes to mind. Ryan Mallett comes to mind. Probably Cody Kessler as well. These are guys that the tape on them in college wasn't overwhelming, but from a physical standpoint, they were can't-miss guys that you had to take a shot on because all the measurements were fabulous. And then you know what? The tape wasn't very good at the NFL level. Is Anthony Richardson a risk at being the same type thing?
He's a risk, for sure. You know, the level of risk, I think, depends on the eye of the beholder. But, yes, there is a risk. There's no question. As I said earlier, I mean, he's got 13 starts, so you don't have the same level of certainty, not that there is ever any certainty, right? But you just don't have the same level of information, I guess, that you do after a guy has started 2 or 3 years. That's a fact, right? I mean, we have more tape of Bryce Young. We have more tape of C.J. Stroud, and they've been doing it longer. There's a bigger body of work. All of that is true. But I think the difference between Anthony Richardson and some of the quarterback busts who were physically gifted in the past but whom didn't enjoy NFL success, I think the difference here is really the fact that he hasn't played a lot, actually, because you have that upside, that untapped upside, and I think he got better over the course of 2022. He got better over the course of the season. I remember sitting down and watching Florida versus Kentucky early in the season. I don't get around to watching much college football because I'm traveling to a Colts game or something on a Saturday, but I knew there was some hype and sat down and watched that game and was thoroughly disappointed. But that was also very early in the season. And I think by the end of the season, you started to see a guy who was much more comfortable. That gives me some comfort if I'm an NFL team, because if he can continue on that trajectory of improvement at the NFL level with the time invested, with the improvement in coaching, with the higher level of athlete around him, that is going to give me some comfort that he can continue on that trajectory. But again, you don't know anything on these things, right? It's all a projection and jobs are on the line. I get it.
In any way, shape, or form, Stephen Holder, was it possible for you to even get like an idea of which of those 4 quarterbacks the Colts seemed to raise their eyebrow towards the most?
I don't think a clear picture has been ascertained just yet on that. And it may not be. I will tell you, the Colts are being very intentionally vague. And this is very deliberate. I know this about their intentions at quarterback and about their evaluations of the quarterback. They're doing a good job of not indicating very much. I will tell you this. I know I was with Anthony Richardson last week, so I can speak to him. I do know they have quite a bit of interest. They are very intrigued by him. Does that mean he'll be the guy? No, because, again, I can't speak to how they view the other quarterbacks, but I do know they like him, and I do know they're very intrigued and have spent a great deal of time evaluating him, both from afar and in person.
Again, Stephen Holder from ESPN.com. He is with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. The franchise tag deadline came and passed. Colts still have not used it since Pat McAfee in 2013. Monday is when the legal tampering begins. I say that in quotes because we know full well when noon rolls around on Monday, we'll start to get some deals announced before things officially start a week from today. That is Wednesday for the new league year. Stephen, are you standing on a table for any Colts free agent not named Chase McLaughlin?
Yeah, well, definitely. I don't want to go through a kicking fiasco again, so I'm with you there. Standing on a table? No, I don't know about that. I would say I think their most appealing free agent might be Bobby Okereke, and I don't mean to dismiss Yannick Ngakoue. I think he is a very good player. But in terms of where Bobby ranks at his position, I think he may be higher. He may be the guy who at his position group gets, maybe a really sizable contract. And frankly, that's a position where the Colts have a great track record of drafting guys, developing them, and then replacing them. And I think they're going to do the same thing here. Particularly if they can get, or if they feel good about getting Shaquille Leonard back on the field this year, you'd have him and Zaire Franklin, and I think that's a pretty good combination for your top two linebackers, which is really what matters, the top two. So Ngakoue is a tough one. Like him a lot, and I think he was very valuable to the Colts last year. The question really just becomes, do they want to double down and pay him big money, or would they rather continue sort of with the pass rush by committee approach, if you will, and hope that a couple of their young guys start to emerge a little more and continue, I guess, their emergence? So we're starting to see it already, but does that continue? Or do you want to sort of put more eggs in that one basket with Ngakoue? I don't know. I guess it just really depends on the number. I would say the Colts, their cap space is not, I forget the number off the top of my head, but it's depending on what they do with Matt Ryan, it's going to be okay and they'll be fine, but it's not one of those years where they've got $60 million.
It's $12 million right now. Obviously, like you said, with Ryan, you can open up a whole lot more.
Right. But it's not going to be one of those years where, like, not that they have ever really taken advantage of it, but it's not going to be one of those years where the Colts can just do whatever they want because they have limitless cap space. There are going to be some limitations this year.
Stephen, I want you to close your eyes for a second and envision with me, right? Like we're gonna take an imaginary trip here, right?
If you fall back asleep,
that's right.
I will not judge at all, Stephen. Yeah.
You close it. Well, you're going to answer that. You close your eyes right now. It's the Colts bye week, so it's probably somewhere late October, early November, somewhere in there. And ESPN says to you, Stephen, here's what we're going to do. The Colts have been using a rookie quarterback this year, and he's had some success and some struggles. But we're going to send you back to his college to interview his college staff about what they think about how his rookie year is going, talk to some of the fans about how much they're following the Colts. You find yourself in what town?
So I figured that's where this was going. This is a total guess, okay? Total guess. But
are you driving or flying?
So I think I'm driving 3 hours east to Columbus, Ohio.
Now, the other question is this. Is that because the Colts are able to get C.J. Stroud at number 4, or is Chris Ballard going to have to start wheeling and dealing like Griggs is wheeling and dealing? Is he going to have to do the same to move up to get C.J. Stroud?
Yeah, that is an interesting question. I lean towards saying, let's put it this way. If you want to be sure that you get C.J. Stroud, I think you have to move up. He might fall. He might. But are you willing to stake your future on that or your reputation? I mean, or Bryce Young for that matter, right? I mean, I think either of those top two quarterbacks, because they are the top two, as we sit here today, right? Now, the reality on draft day may be different. But as we sit here today, we think they're the top two. I don't see how you can sleep at night and say you're going to get either one of those guys at number 4. If you're counting on that, then that's a bad bet. That's a terrible bet, in my opinion.
Is Will Levis still in the thought maybe he wasn't. I mean, I've heard Will Levis is fascinating to me because, Stephen, I've heard Will Levis, some people say is a top 4 quarterback, others say he's not a first rounder. Where do you think post-combine things sit with Will Levis's stock?
It doesn't seem like anything's really changed with him. I think it's kind of you are wherever you are with him. And I think he can be a successful NFL quarterback. I do agree we haven't talked enough about him because, number one, he's probably going to go higher than people think. He's a quarterback. He's got a viable skill set in 2023, and half the league could use an upgrade, right? So he's going to do just fine, in my opinion. So we're probably not talking enough about him. Now, as it relates to the Colts, really hard to say. Really hard to say. I just don't know that the assessment with him, or at least it feels this way, right? No one's actually said these words out loud, but it feels like with Levis, like there's maybe not as much expectation that he has elite potential as some of these other guys. I may be wrong about that, right? That's just my sense. That is just my observation, my sense. We'll see if I'm proven right, but it does feel that way.
Stephen, last one from me. The big news in the NFL yesterday was Lamar Jackson, the non-exclusive franchise tag, $32 million for next year. If a team wants to get Lamar, they would have to give him a new contract. I think a lot of people believe that would be potentially a fully guaranteed contract, and then also give the Ravens 2 first-round picks. I found it very interesting yesterday that seemingly minutes after you had this announcement that the Ravens franchise tag Lamar Jackson, like 6 reportedly quarterback-needy teams all had their respective beat people or national reporters come out and be like, yeah, we have no interest in Lamar Jackson. Is this owners colluding, coming together and saying we strongly disagreed with the Deshaun Watson guaranteed contract that Cleveland gave him last year, and we will not allow that to happen with Lamar Jackson?
Well, first of all, we don't have to speculate. We know they didn't like the Deshaun Watson contract. Like, that was a bridge too far for most NFL owners. And it's one of the reasons you've seen the Baltimore ownership come out and say, look, that is not something that we want to do. I can't prove this. Nobody can. But, are we to sit here and believe that the NFL ownership hasn't talked about this among themselves? You're damn right they have, okay? Because as much as they want to beat each other, the one thing that they love is money, right? And they are businessmen and women. So they understand this. They understand what's at stake here. If you start giving out a bunch of guaranteed contracts, could that eat into your bottom line? Of course it could. So this is front and center. There was actually an ownership meeting this week in, I believe, Palm Beach. I'm not saying it was on the agenda. I'm just saying. So anyway, here's my point. I think that it was so blatant. Like, they're so bad at this, okay? As you said, all right, it's one thing to say you don't want to give Lamar Jackson a guaranteed contract. I'm fine with that. Like, I don't have any issue with that. That is fine. A perfectly reasonable position. However, to say you're not even going to engage with him is kind of ridiculous. And it shows, to me at least, that this was predetermined. It certainly suggests that it was predetermined. Who knows? If you engage with him, maybe you can pay a little more than other teams might be willing to pay and not guarantee the whole thing. And that may then appeal to him, right? Who knows? But they're not even engaging with Lamar Jackson, so they're not even bothering to have the conversation. That should say something right there.
Stephen, last one from me. I was thinking about this on the drive in. I've always liked Derek Carr's skill set. I think he seems like a decent guy. I might have totally misread him. I don't know. We'll probably never know that. But by Derek Carr going to New Orleans, there's nothing overly splashy or sexy about Derek Carr. There's nothing really overly splashy or sexy about the New Orleans Saints. But by signing him, do they all of a sudden become in the mix in the NFC strictly based on the fact that that division is abysmal with no known quarterback, and the NFC is the polar opposite of the AFC in terms of quarterback depth?
I do think it was a good move for him to go to the NFC. I would say
Correct.
that. I mean, listen, he was in the AFC West, man. Okay? Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert.
You know, somebody asked this. I think this is a great question. Is Derek Carr the best, worst quarterback in his division in the history of the NFL?
That's a fair question. Look, I also like Derek Carr. I also think he's a decent human being. I've always struggled to evaluate him as a quarterback. I really, really want to like him and do and have liked him at times, but then I also look at, well, the results just aren't there, and what does that say? Despite that team at times having a fair amount of talent, the Raiders I'm talking about, right? So I don't know how to feel about him sometimes. I really don't. But anyway, be that as it may, I do think it's very interesting. He that maybe solidifies your point that he's maybe one of those worst, best quarterbacks. It's very interesting. But he is definitely the best quarterback in that division, pending other moves, obviously. I think Carolina is a team that's going to make a move. That's one other thing. I know this is not what you asked me, but I would say one takeaway from the Combine that I had is that Carolina, they are getting them a quarterback, buddy. That is happening.
Yeah, I think they could be a big trade up here coming up in late April. Stephen, I lied. Last one. Parris Campbell back with the Colts?
I think so. I do. I think it makes too much sense.
Pretty weak wide receiver free agent market.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the money's cheap, and I think it will be, but we'll see. I mean, I would say the one thing I would say is that the wide receiver is a position that tends to get overpaid, kind of. Like, I mean, at least in perception wise, it's just a big dollar position at times, and you know, guys can get more money than you think. So we'll see. But I would say this: I do think, as the Colts kind of evaluate what they have, I do think that wide receiver is a position where maybe they are thinking about whether they have enough. So we'll see what that ends up meaning in the end. But maybe that's a product of Shane Steichen and his thinking. We'll see.
Stephen, great work on the Anthony Richardson front. Again, that is his latest up on ESPN.com, behind the scenes with Richardson at the Combine. Thanks for sharing that, Stephen.
All right, guys. Take care.
Stephen Holder right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. On the Parris Campbell front, be curious if Frank Reich makes a call.
I guess there's familiarity there. I think of Parris Campbell as a good player, that probably a situational guy, right? Like the right situation. Like, I don't know that he just airdrops into any place and becomes a dynamic player. But he to his credit, Kevin, he did two things last year that were impressive. The first was he made it into the finals of the knockout competition with Kristen Airy and myself that you got to sit and watch. And the other is that he did have a nice, solid year for the Colts.
Well, more than anything, Jake, he was healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, more than just production. He played all 17 games, and that has got to be such a mental relief for him in a contract after his first 3 years. Over 60 catches, over 600 yards. We know teams pay for speed. I am particularly interested in just how that market will look like for Campbell, because I do think the Colts need help at wideout, even if it bring him back. But I also think he's a good complement to what you have in Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce as a different style wideout. So a whole lot more on the free agency front to get to, as we are less than a week away from the fireworks beginning on that front. Let's hit a morning checkdown.
The morning checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
We are sparing Kevin Bowen from hearing once again the results of the ACC tournament from yesterday, at least for a second. Because we'll begin with the association, the NBA. Last night, it was Steph Curry with 40. That was the high score, but it was not enough because Oklahoma City 137-128 over the Golden State Warriors last night. Joel Embiid, as JMV pointed out, played the second half of a back-to-back, played 28 minutes, still enough to get 39 points against a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year in Rudy Gobert and the Timberwolves. 117-94, the Sixers win in that one. Charlotte, the Bucks, the Wizards, the Lakers, the Mavs, and the Brooklyn Nets also winners last night in the NBA.
Pacers back to practice today. They will take on the Rockets at home tomorrow. Houston has lost, I think it's 12 of their last 14. The Spurs, the only team they've beaten in that stretch.
Well, they beat the Pacers, the Spurs.
So the Pacers should be a pretty big favorite at home tomorrow against the Rockets.
Now, the question is, Kevin, you have your collection of beers from Mark and myself from your Shane Steichen draft.
Right, after about 3 months.
Now, Shane Steichen was hired 2 weeks ago.
And then you went to Florida for
That's
a week.
Right. If tonight, or actually tomorrow night, if the Pacers win and you cash in on your 30-win over-under wager and you crack a celebratory beer, you have several to choose from. Which one are you going with first?
So I've got to pick one of you or Mark?
Correct. Boy. Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you have, let's see, your options are what?
Yeah, I've got some Taxman for Mark.
Okay.
I've got a Rolling Rock from you, along with PBR and WeMac. I might start with the Taxman, Mark. I thought that was intriguing.
Yeah.
A little bit of a new look to it. I thought the cans look cool as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd probably go with the WeMac second.
Okay.
The Rolling Rock bottle is pretty old faithful. I mean, PBR is the definition of.
I think you crack two and you double fist them both, and then you do kind of like a taste test.
I may pour one on top of my head to celebrate Mike Bray's departure.
Yeah.
Notre Dame lost last night, ACC Tournament. It was a very close game, back and forth, relatively entertaining. Notre Dame had a lead
relatively entertaining.
That's been the season in a nutshell.
Relatively entertaining. Is there anything that more defines this show than relatively entertaining?
Just a horrific flagrant one call in the final 2 minutes. Mike Bray was irate. Not a whole lot. He was
relatively irate.
Fanfare walking off the floor in his final game. So Notre Dame season is over. Will Butler's season be over at about 5 o'clock today, or are they going to get it done?
The Dogs do play tonight. As a matter of fact, but last night we should also tip of the cap to the Horizon League Championship last night.
The Norse.
Northern Kentucky, right? Butler and St. John's. That's a 3 o'clock tip. Big East Tournament, first round in New York City.
5.5 point underdog, Butler.
I do. And by the way, speaking of, my brain's all over the place here. Speaking of the Big East, we mentioned it earlier, the top 15 highest-ranked television college basketball games of the season. The number one, the highest-ranked regular season game in college basketball this year, Creighton and DePaul, a Fox television matchup, but it was Christmas Day. Indiana was in 3 of the top 7 highest-ranked games, including against Purdue. That was the 7th highest-rated television game. Indiana and Michigan State. Indiana and Michigan, the other 2 in that list. But back to the Kevin, I love that the Coliseum is the site for the Horizon League Championship. I know that, unfortunately, the matchup, Northern Kentucky, I think, brought some fans. It's just such a cool venue, and I would love for that to be able to continue to be used in college basketball in some way, shape, or form. But it was cool last night. It was a good game, actually, in the Horizon League Championship with Northern Kentucky, and I always forget. It was Northern Kentucky. It was the Norse and Cleveland State, the Vikings, right?
Yes.
Northern Kentucky hit a huge 3 late in that contest to carry them in. And last night in the other conference tournaments, as you talked about, Oral Roberts and College of Charleston both winning. That's good news for teams on the bubble because that means no bid stealers in those leagues, right?
We'll see how tonight plays out. Wisconsin, Ohio State, 6:15. The Big Ten Tournament. Wisconsin needs, you would think, multiple wins to get in. Minnesota, Nebraska is the 9 o'clock tip from the United Center. And then tomorrow, that's where you'll get the noon game between Michigan and Rutgers. Rutgers barely on the right side, Michigan on the wrong side of the bubble right now. Purdue will take on the winner of that one coming up Friday at noon. We'll touch on some Big Ten awards coming up next. And again, Colts free agency. Anybody that you're standing on a table for as things get underway next week with that. Still got Mike DeCourcy coming up in the 9 o'clock hour as Purdue with 1 seed. We'll chat with him about that. And the Combine recap from a national standpoint. Matt Miller of ESPN.com at 9:30.
The Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show is this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. For hunting, sporting, and personal protection gear, visit the Indy 1500 Gun and Knife Show.
It's JMV for CarX Tire and Auto and March Saving Madness. Tires, brakes, brake pads, oil changes, and more. March Saving Madness. CarX.com today.
Making Moves is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs.
In winning teams, every player brings their unique strength and has an impact on the results. The Dallas Mavericks drafted Jason Kidd with the second pick in the 1995 draft. But after 2.5 seasons, they traded him to Phoenix, and he then played for the Nets. It was not until he was 34 when he became a Maverick once again. He was exactly what they needed and became an integral part of a team that went on to win the 2011 NBA Finals over the Miami Heat.
Build your winning team today. Go to linkedin.com/sports.
When there's a chance for a championship trophy, you need to have the right people in the right positions. That's why when you post a job for free, LinkedIn Jobs taps into a network of over 875 million professionals to find the right people for your role. LinkedIn Jobs helps you narrow down to only the most qualified candidates, which means you can start hiring the right people faster. Go to linkedin.com/sports to post your job for free. That's linkedin.com/sports. Terms and conditions apply.
Snoop Dogg presents
This legendary is brought to you by the D.O.
High School Reunion Tour with Wiz Khalifa, Too Short, Warren G, Burner, and special guest DJ Drama. Ruoff Music Center, July 20th. Pre-sale for City Card members available now through Thursday at 10 p.m. before the general public, on sale Friday at 9 a.m. at livenation.com.
Can you handle the truth about your problem gambling? Is your truth missing work or important events in your life due to gambling? Do you brag about your gambling wins but hide your losses to the people you care about the most? Is gambling a way to escape pressures from home or work? If problem gambling is your truth, text INGAMB to 53342. Again, text INGAMB to 53342. Or face problem gambling by calling 800-9-WITH-IT. That's 800-994-8448.
When you're an innovative business, every blinking cursor, every blank page is an opportunity. What will you do with it? Will you make something better or create something new? Our Dell Technologies advisors provide you with tools and expertise to do incredible things. Because we believe there's an innovator in all of us. For advice on smart PCs powered by Intel V Pro that's built for business, call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL.
Will they find a home? Sponsored by Geico. Sarah wants a yard. My own little paradise. Brad, however, hates yard work.
The only thing I hate more than cutting the grass is paying someone to cut the grass.
Compromise is tough, but these two won't have to compromise when they bundle home and car insurance with Geico. It's easy, and they could save even more. In the end, Sarah and Brad found a great home with a yard. A very, very small yard.
Time to get it done. And I'm done.
Bundling without compromise at geico.com.
The Ride with JMV.
Peter King joins us. What do you think about Chris Ballard's decision with number 4?
Chris Ballard, if he can't get John Doe, his favorite quarterback, then he is going to sit this one out, and he's going to try to gather enough draft capital so that next year he might be in position to do the exact same thing. And I think that's smart.
The Ride with JMV.
Weekdays 3 to 6
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan. You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Now, here's the dilemma that we're running into, and this is the story of my life, okay? And by the way, I do know that Noel Gallagher is going to be at whatever they call it, Deer Creek now. Is it Ruoff? Is it Verizon?
Ruoff, yeah.
Is it the Sun King Center? What is it? Is it Ruoff?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a local or national deal, Ruoff?
Don't know.
I thought Ruoff was like out of Carmel, and then all of a sudden, you know, I'm like in Omaha, and there's a Ruoff something.
There's no way he has a red nose and he helps Santa.
I have a red nose too. Did you see this?
I did, yeah. I didn't know what was going on with you.
I looked like I took a stumble and took a bite on a sidewalk or something, but when
St. Pete's Sun? Or something.
The St. Pete Sun is exactly right. Thank you, Kevin. My skin started peeling, and I have a dot on my nose. Mm-hmm. But here's the dilemma that I figured out that I've run into. this is the story of my life. So we do the numbers game for the NCAA tournament, and people go crazy for it. I mean, they start lining up. Traffic gets rough in March because people are lined up out here for numbers. They just go crazy for it, and kids love the game. And we assign people. There's 68 teams. Valerie, our unofficial show number assigner, randomly assigns each school a number, and then people call in. We give them that team. And there are 3 ways to win. You either win by having the team that wins the NCAA tournament, you win by having the double-digit seed that advances the furthest, or you win by having the team that gets blown out by the largest margin in the tournament. And people go crazy for it. And then this always happens to me. We're coming up on the year, and I have yet to give out any prizes. Now, Darnell was last year the winner with Kansas, and then I can't remember who had St. Peter's.
Kind of how I felt about the old Shane Steichen bet, so I can empathize with our listeners.
And so now we're working on getting together fabulous prizes for everybody, like parting gifts.
Fabulous. We have prizes of some sort.
They're going to be wonderful prizes, parting gifts, maybe some air freshener, that kind of thing. And then I've got to get Darnell, because we do the same for the 500, and then I forgot about that too. And Darnell won both, so now I owe him literally. He's living with me for a week. Is what's going to happen.
It sounds like you lost then.
Yeah, I was going to say, boy, that's a bad bet right there.
I can't eat any more SpaghettiOs, Jake.
Yeah, those Pop-Tarts are a little stale.
Now, I also have some Dinty Moore beef stew in the cabinet.
Oh, well, that changes everything.
Because you never know if all of a sudden, there's some sort of post-apocalyptic, I'm good to go. I've got SpaghettiOs.
You and the cockroaches are set.
That's right. SpaghettiOs, Dinty Moore, and Pop-Tarts. I'm good to go.
Zach Edey, the Big Ten Player of the Year. The coaches voted for the first team. Obviously, Trayce Jackson-Davis, Zach Edey on that. The other 3, you've got Terrence Shannon from Illinois, Chris Murray from Iowa, and Jalen Pickett from Penn State. And when I look at this, the only real gripe I had, I thought Matt Painter and Chris Collins should have been co-coaches of the year.
I think that's fair. I think that
Chris Collins is a solo coach of the year, by the way.
There's automatically, Kevin, kind of this stigma that comes with sustained success in a program name. So, I don't know. Like, how often did Mike Krzyzewski win ACC Coach of the Year?
Yeah, like in the Big 12, does Bill Self just win it annually because they win the conference every year?
Yeah, but
I'm sure there's a fatigue level.
Or is there an element of, in the Big 12, some school that is not normally a basketball school, and it's like, oh man, what a remarkable job because they went 500, Yeah,
I just look at Purdue where they were voted preseason, and the fact that they won the Big 10 by 3 games, which is pretty unheard of when you look back on the past decade or so, and honestly, you probably could look a lot deeper in the history of the Big 10 Conference. I thought that there was some deserving on that front. I didn't have an issue with Zach Edey as the outright Big Ten Player of the Year. I get that Trayce Jackson-Davis has very comparable numbers. I get that Indiana won both matchups. I also think Purdue has less of a supporting cast. No player on the second or third team for Purdue. You did have Jalen Hood-Schifino as the freshman of the year and second team All Big Ten. And I do think there's something to be said for, the best player on the team that did win the conference by 3 games. I think that also adds to it there.
Mike Krzyzewski was never ACC Coach of the Year after the year 2000. I mean, you can't tell me that here are your ACC Coaches of the Year winners. Gary Williams, Skip Prosser, Herb Sendek, Seth Greenberg, Roy Williams, Dave Latow, Seth Greenberg, Leonard Hamilton, Gary Williams, Roy Williams, Leonard Hamilton, Jim Larinaga, Tony Bennett, Jim Larinaga, Josh Pastner. Again, Josh Pastner. I mean,
I think the award oftentimes is like, who was picked to finish really bad and didn't finish really bad?
Georgia Tech went 8-10 in the ACC in 2017, and Josh Pastner was the ACC Coach of the Year. It's the expectation going into it, right, of where you're expected to be.
Which I think can get a little bit difficult with any sort of awards that, have a standard in the preseason, and then you're kind of evaluating it off that standard. We just talked with Stephen Holder about this. Colts free agents. Jake, you stand on a table for any of them?
I don't have very good balance these days. I think Bobby Okereke is really intriguing but at the same time, Kevin, he is probably the one, as Stephen had mentioned, that has the most market value outside of Indianapolis. So I think there's a limit on what you're willing to pay for it.
Yeah, I think frankly, I don't think there's really any shot you can bring him back because you've already paid too much money at linebacker for other guys.
Yeah, and that's the kind of at no fault of theirs, but that's where they're painted in a corner a little bit because you just don't know how badly you need him because you don't know about Shaquille Leonard, right?
I'd probably bring back EJ Speed. He's another linebacker that I think would be a little bit more affordable. I think he was arguably your best special team player for you last season, and to me can be a little bit of insurance if you want to look at it like that with the unknown on Leonard. And again, much more affordable than what Okereke, rightfully so, will garner on the open market. I would say one guy that I'm a little bit more pro bring back than most would be Yannick Ngakoue. I think a lot of people just wasn't impactful late in games. The question that I would throw out there would be, who else?
That's fair.
And I think people lose sight of something about Ngakoue that's defined his whole career: availability. That dude has missed 4 games in 7 years, Jake. Kwity Paye's missed 7 games in 2 years.
Let me ask you this. EJ Speed, do you think it's possible that EJ Speed, let's say for the sake of argument that Shaquille Leonard has another year where his availability is the same as it was this year, okay? And Bobby Okereke signs with the Atlanta Falcons.
Ooh, Bears, Eberflus.
Could EJ Speed, if he is elevated into the role that Bobby Okereke had, could EJ Speed give you similar type production?
I would be curious about that. I think he's shown me enough that I wouldn't be like, this is DEF CON, I'm freaking out.
I would agree with that.
If I'm Gus Bradley, I'm not sleeping the night before the game. So that is why I would, again, side with Speed.
That point, Yannick Ngakoue, I don't know that you feel like there is the understudy that can duplicate the same production, right?
There's not. To be fair, I think it's a harder position to find understudies at.
Totally. That, which to your point is probably why he elevates in terms of the table standing, right?
Clearly, Gus Bradley has an affinity for him. They've had multiple stops in the NFL. I think he was a little bit more banged up than even it was let on last year. So, if he can have a little bit of just a healthier, he was available, but just a healthier playing season, I think that would factor in as well. But again, it comes down to a lot of who else. And I don't want to put too much on the plate of Kwity Paye and Dayo Odeyingbo just yet. And I also don't think those are the same players of Ngakoue. I think Ngakoue is kind of that pure speed guy. I think Paye and Dayo are a little bit more of like, nice rushers, but a little more power rushers in that sense. We'll see. Veteran pass rushers, who gets cut and all of that. I do think that is a big part of what the next handful of days will be about. But again, I would look into bringing Yannick Ngakoue back, I think, more than some others will be. You definitely want to see more consistency from him, particularly late in games. But I think that question of who else needs to be addressed.
You need Ngakoue. Isn't that what?
In my opinion, that sucks.
You just stare at come on. Yeah, Ngakoue is a guy that, but again, Kevin, ceiling on the price tag, right, for any of them. Isn't that fair?
Certainly.
What position will be the biggest splash the Colts make in free agency?
I think you got to go out and you got to look at offensive line, the interior of that unit. Again, I would probably cut Ryan Kelly. I think you got to go get a starter there.
A better question would be this. If Ryan Kelly is cut by the Colts, does he go somewhere else?
Yeah, I think he probably would. Not exactly sure what that market would look like for him. But yeah, Mark, I think interior of your O-line, I think you could use a swing tackle, some insurance behind Bernard Ryman.
So you're not going left tackle for like a Taylor Lewan or an Orlando Brown if they hit the market?
I think you are trusting that Bernard Ryman deserves a shot to be your day one starter. I think he's got to improve in the strength area. He was a tight end initially in college, transitioned to tackle. I thought that was an area where he did get exposed a little bit last year, but you knew when you drafted him there would be some growth. And I thought he showed enough promise late in the year that he deserves that opportunity. I would like to see a pass catcher in free agency. And when I use that term, wideout and or tight end. I know it's not a great wideout group, but I think you need a little bit more support for, in all likelihood, the rookie quarterback.
The rookie quarterback. Do you believe that for the first contract of whatever quarterback the Colts are about to take, that his number one receiver for the majority of his first contract will be Michael Pittman?
Do that again.
Insert name of quarterback. C.J. Stroud. I'm just throwing that out. C.J. Stroud becomes the Colts quarterback next season. Over the life of his first contract, do you believe that for the majority of that time, his number one receiver is Michael Pittman?
I guess I'll throw in who else. Yeah. I mean, I think Pittman will get extended, and that means he will obviously be here, and I don't see a wideout entering the fold and all of a sudden becoming your number one wideout that early in his respective career. I don't think Alec Pierce would get to that level. Maybe he will become more of a complete route runner. I think he still can be a really effective player for you, just kind of as a one or two trick pony. Yeah. But
Pierce is kind of easy to, you forget he really did start to show towards the end of the year. I thought, hey, this is why they went out and got him, right?
Jake, I honestly thought he was better a little bit in the earlier middle part. I thought he kind of faded late. Now, honestly, I don't think the quarterback play late helped him out either.
Right.
He offers you just the big play stuff that was so lacking. I mean, boom, throw the jump ball to him, and he makes a 30 or 40-yard play. The game winner against Jacksonville here at Lucas Oil Stadium. Not a lot of guys can make that sort of play. So what they do at pass catcher, I think, and honestly, starting next week, you do show your cards a little bit. I mean, if they go out there and they make a lot of splashes in free agency, or more than they're used to, is that a sign that says, hey, we're probably going to trade up in the draft, and we know we can't find support for our quarterback with the trade up? We're going to do our support in March. Do you show your cards a little bit there?
Right.
I think that'll be something to monitor next week. All right, Purdue, how much do they need to get to a 1 seed? Where's IU right now? Are they definitely on that 4 line? We'll chat about that with Mike DeCourcy coming up here in a few.
Mom, Dad, Sis?
Here we go again.
Why are you in a suit? Picture, if you will, a world with the best network imaginable. I'm talking about the Xfinity 10G network. Go on. Mom, remember how your reality shows wouldn't load with all of us online? Now you can binge. And Susie, we'll have fast internet in the basement.
Nice.
If you have any questions, here's my card.
This is just your name on a gum wrapper.
Introducing the 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. Now through March 21st, new customers can get 200 megabit Xfinity internet during our limited time Xfinity 10G network launch celebration for just $25 a month for 2 years. Plus, there's no annual contract required and you get Wi-Fi equipment included. Go to Xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and autopay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Taxes and fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service and devices. Actual speeds vary.
All right, QC Kinetics, they're helping us out in the joint pain treatment. Everyone's talking about regenerative medicine because people who have joint pain are getting real, lasting relief via QC Kinetics. A free consultation awaits. Locations in Eagle Creek, Greenwood, and Carmel. QC Kinetics does is they take a highly concentrated healing agents from your own body to restore and repair damaged joint tissue. If you have ongoing joint pain from arthritis or injury, you need to call QC Kinetics, 317-559-PAIN. And don't assume that steroids and surgery are your only options. Things have changed, and regenerative medicine can get you moving again with no downtime. So stop taking the pain meds and discover this remarkable alternative that pro athletes have been using for years. Don't put this off any longer. Spring is about to be here, and you want to enjoy all life has to offer. So QC Kinetics, locations, Eagle Creek, Greenwood, and Carmel, 317-559-PAIN.
Hey, Wings Etc. fans, guess what? It's Wings Schooner Madness time.
You heard him right, Wings Etc. fans. From now through March 8th, our award-winning jumbo and boneless wings are just 79 cents. And domestic schooners are just $5.50. Dine-in only, 79-cent wings and $5.50 domestic schooners now through March 8th, only at Wings Etc.
The beer is cold, the deals are hot, and only at Wings Etc.
Wings Etc. Grill and Pub with 13 Central Indiana locations. Find us online at wingsetc.com.
A few weeks ago, I had Christian from Window Nation come out and give me some advice on potentially installing some new windows. Window Nation, family-owned company, two brothers. They have great quality not only in the windows itself, but they're installers. They only install windows, so that is their specialty, so you won't have any issues on that front. The nice thing right now is, even in March, they still have a deal for the off-season. Obviously, energy costs have been rising nationwide. They're up 14%, but it's not too late to fix your high energy bills, all while getting that off-season price from Window Nation. Call 866-90-NATION or go online to windownation.com. You can beat the rush with 2 free windows with every 2 you buy, plus pay 0 down, make 0 payments, and get 0% financing for 24 months. That's 2 years paying nothing. Call 866-90-NATION or go online right now to windownation.com.
Sister Hazel, live at Four Winds South Bend's Ribbon Town Conference and Event Center on Friday, April 7th at 9 p.m. Eastern, performing hits like All For You, That Kind of Beautiful, Champagne High, and more. This is one show you won't want to miss. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. It's Sister Hazel at the new Ribbon Town Conference and Event Center at Four Winds South Bend, your entertainment escape.
At My Great Clip Salon, I get to use my skills as a stylist to make customers look and feel great. When you sit down in my chair, it's important to me to listen to what you want. And when your haircut's done, I'll save your details and clip notes so you can get the look you love at any Great Clip Salon, anywhere you are. Seeing customers light up at the end of their cut, that's what I love about my job. I'm Katie, and I'm a Great Clip Salon stylist.
Join a salon team. Visit jobs.greatclips.com.
The Pacers welcome the Houston Rockets to the Fieldhouse tomorrow evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
It's Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
When do we move our clocks again? We spring forward, right? So that means
it's got to be somewhat soon, maybe a couple weeks.
Is it this weekend?
Is it?
I don't know, but then are we going to be dragging for like a week because all of a sudden you lose that hour and that throws everybody off?
Sunday, March 12th.
I feel like, I don't know about you, Mark, but I feel like it's such an issue with the kids.
Yeah.
Like getting them back on track from a sleeping standpoint, I'm like, God.
I've always wanted to, and maybe I'll do it again this year, although the morning thing hurts a little bit. Just drive around 465 and try to get a speeding ticket, and then when they write down that you got the ticket at like 2 a.m., you go to court and you go, there was no 2 a.m. Went from 1 to 3.
Boy, that sounds like the annoying kid we all had in class.
Technically, yeah. Well,
that checks out, though, to be fair. Jake said it, that checks out.
I think I should have been an attorney.
Mike DeCourcy is going to join us in a few.
The loopholes I find.
Again, what does Purdue need to kind of cement the 1 seed? And then he had the unanimous Sporting News first-team All-Americans yesterday. Jake, he had Zach Edey as unanimous, but not Trayce Jackson-Davis. Was that correct?
Correct. But, I mean, both of them, look, a remarkable year for both players. And I think Edey, and we'll ask Mike to clarify. I think Edey probably gets the nod because his team won the conference. But great year for both.
Okay, we'll look at some bracket talk with Mike DeCourcy and then Matt Miller, ESPN NFL draft analyst. He was here at the Combine. A lot of thoughts on the quarterback class. And again, I want to talk with him a little bit about Hendon Hooker. How does he view the Tennessee quarterback who, you could make the case if he doesn't tear that ACL, he might be the Heisman Trophy winner this past year. We'll do all of that coming up in the 9 o'clock hour.
With JMV.
Chris Ballard, the Colts general manager. You go out in free agency, but you don't overspend. Do you change that train of thought?
It's not like we've been just completely void of going into free agency. Have we gone and got necessarily, the biggest fish on the market? No, we have not. I don't know if that will change much, but I also don't know if that necessarily equates to winning.
The Ride with JMV.
Weekdays 3 to 6
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey there, it's Jake Query for the Good Feet Store of Indiana. Good Feet Store has 2 locations. One is in Greenwood. The other is in Clearwater at 82nd and Dean. I love the results that I have gotten from the Good Feet Store. And by that, I mean my foot pain has gone away because of the inserts that I have, and they're super easy to interchange from one pair of shoes to the next. The inserts that I got from the Good Feet store with no hassle, no obligation, in dealing with their fabulously trained and overly friendly staff at the not overly, but very friendly staff at the Good Feet store. Went in, got simply an imprint of my foot, which then allowed them to say, look, Jake, we're not going to give you one of those one-size-fits-all shoe inserts. We're going to get you one that is designed to best kind of straighten out the contour of the way that you're standing, and I have not had any foot pain since. I absolutely love my results. I'm confident you will see equal results from the great people at the Good Feet store of Indiana. Give them a look on the web, goodfeetindy.com.
You need furnace or heat pump service and need to find a local, well-trained expert you can trust like Family Heating and Air Conditioning? We'll find that American Standard air dealer at IndyHomeComfort.com.
I switched to Boost Mobile and got a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone. Want to know the best part?
It was free?
Nope.
The fact that it's on America's largest 5G networks?
Nope. It's the ding.
Oh yeah, love the ding.
Right? It's all about the ding. It's the dingarooski, the dingaroner, the ring-a-ding-ding.
Unleash your power to save with Boost. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone when you switch. Boost Mobile. Unleash your power.
And the ding.
Limited time offer. New customers only. Available on select networks. 5G not available everywhere. One device per line. Tax excluded. Additional restrictions apply. See your local Boost Mobile store for details.
Listen to The Ride with JMB from 3 to 6 p.m. all this week for a chance to win 2 tickets to see Kiss, the final tour, on Saturday, November 25th at Gamebridge Fieldhouse.
93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
WIBC HD2 W298BB, WIBC HD3 W228CX, Indianapolis. The Pacers welcome the Houston Rockets to the Fieldhouse tomorrow evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
Maybe I don't really want to know.
You're listening to Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan.
9 o'clock hour in Indianapolis. For that matter, it's the 9 o'clock hour everywhere in the Eastern time zone. Jake Query along with Kevin Bowen, Mark Dykton here as well. Great question from Chris. Since I always talk about how I don't really feel my stride until the last hour of the show, since we spring forward next week, does that mean I'll really start getting going around 10?
That is a great question.
That actually is pretty much what happens to me every day, right? Around 10, I'm like, well, I'm starting to feel it now. I'm awake. Joining us now, and I'm sure thrilled to be doing so.
Jump ahead, wouldn't that be 8, right?
What's that?
Spring forward, wouldn't that be 8? You're feeling it?
Is that what it is? I guess you're right, actually.
Skip an hour, is that correct?
Now I'm all confused.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 8 a.m. will be a nice change of pace for Jake.
That's right. Well, I've got Mark. You're the one whose hair looks fabulous.
Well, that's because I take my ring off and do my hair, which apparently you don't.
Mike DeCourcy joins us now, and as I'd mentioned, I'm sure thrilled to be doing so on the Payless Liquors hotline. Mike, just about this time yesterday, the Sporting News released their All-American list, and Zach Edey, unanimous. Trayce Jackson-Davis had to be right behind him. I think that it's easy for people, Mike, understandably so because of the rivalry, to debate back and forth which of the two was more deserving. But I look at it simply as, you know what? 2 of the best players in college basketball are right here within an hour of here, and that's pretty darn cool.
That is pretty cool. Absolutely. It's and very much were deserving. I think that I think there's a couple of things if you want to debate, not our list, because they're all equals. I mean, when at the end of the day, nobody other than for the curiosity of the article, when they're listed on Wikipedia in 5 years, they're not going to be designated as one got more votes. Now, I think that what you'll find out in regards to the Big Ten Player of the Year award, the National Player of the Year award, which we just released within 3 minutes ago. Zach Edey is the Sporting News National College Basketball Player of the Year. And that was the difference between he and Trayce is simply that he's been great all year, and Trayce was not. And that's reality. I don't think anybody was sitting there on January 1st talking about how wonderful Trayce had been. And I understand that it was largely, if not exclusively, because of his back. But once he got rid of that problem, he was so brilliant in January and February and early March, that he came from off the grid, so to speak, to be a first-team All-American. Do you realize how good you have to be in those 2 months to go from, oh, he's pretty good, to, oh, he's one of the 5 best players out of 4,500 players or so? That's how unbelievable January, February, and early March were for Trayce. So I think that's the difference between the two, why one is Big Ten Player of the Year, Sporting News National Player of the Year, and a unanimous All-American, and one is one of the 5 best players in college basketball, which is, as I said, think about the numbers. There are around 4,000, 4,500, somewhere in there, and you're one of the 5 best out of that. That's crazy.
Mike DeCourcy's with us again from Big Ten Network Sporting News. Let's stick with Purdue here for just a second, Mike. The concerns are very valid. I mean, they've had some turnover issues here over the past month or so, something that showed up, honestly, last season. And frankly, they just aren't hitting enough open shots. But at the same time, I would think a glass half full look at Purdue in the tournament would be, it's really, really hard to simulate Zach Edey for teams that aren't used to playing against him or aren't used to scouting him. Replicating that in practice, particularly if you have a quick turnaround in the second of the 2 games on an NCAA tournament weekend, I think would be pretty challenging for a team. How much do you think that will aid Purdue as they try to make a run?
Well, I think that it can help, but when you look at that, you look at him on film and you say, how do we deal with that? Well, what's worked? Okay, so throw everybody you got at him. Everybody. From every angle, multiple players at a time, don't double, triple, and make the other guys make you pay. And that's worked. That's the problem. It worked for Maryland. It worked for IU. Make the other guys make you pay. And when is someone going to step forward and make them pay? Make the opposition who decides that controlling Zach is the entire deal pay for that by hitting threes, by moving the ball quickly and getting open shots, driving it to 12 feet, pulling up. All of that stuff is available when teams go, quote, overboard on defending Zach. But none of it, for the most part, has been punished by the rest of the Boilers. And until it is, the Boilers are going to be in peril against any quality team they play. And I think they're capable of doing it, but they haven't done it. And I worry less about the turnovers against pressure. I think they can manage that, but they need to put teams in a position where they want to pressure and have to pressure by making those open shots that develop by the excess attention to Zach.
It really is remarkable, Mike, back to kind of your original point about Zach Edey, and the fact that his consistency over the course of the season never wavered, despite the fact that teams started kind of trying to do different ways to guard him. Sometimes you saw double, and the backcourt play, while I think the world of Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer and what they were able to do as young players this year, it was not as consistent, to your point. And so would you agree that Zach Edey probably did see multiple looks or variations of the way that he was guarded over the course of the year, yet none of it worked against him, essentially?
Oh, absolutely. You go back to the second, I think it was the second Indiana game, the one they lost at home, and Indiana threw everything at him. And it worked. That's why Indiana won. It worked to beat Purdue. But it didn't work to stop Zach. I think he had 26 and 18 in that game.
Yeah.
And people walked away like, oh, well, he wasn't that great. And then you look at the numbers, it's like, oh, my goodness. We're at the point now where 26 and 18 isn't a big deal. That's how good he's been and how hard he's been to stop. Michigan State played him single up in East Lansing, and I think they gave up 35 or something like that. Then they decided to double him in West Lafayette, and I think he scored 33. He has not allowed you any comfort. And if the rest of the players, and when you said before that they weren't consistent, I think they've been reasonably consistent as players, but no one has been at all consistent as a shooter. Fletcher has really struggled with that. He's not had a great night in a while. He's not had many good nights in the last 6 weeks or so. Braden doesn't get as many looks because now they're that's one of the things. It's easier to close out on him because he's not big, and so they make sure that they do. And they're not concerned at all right now about Fletcher taking shots. They don't worry about Ethan Morton taking shots, and because they know that he's a teeny bit reluctant to do it, and they count on that a little bit. And they're going to pay once in a while because Ethan's making shots from now, but he's never going to make 5 because he's never going to take enough to make 5. Until that happens, then this tactic is the way to go, and we'll see whether or not it eventually happens. I think the move to Brandon Newman, for that reason, was a really smart move by Matt, and you saw what it did early against Illinois especially. It helped fuel that 20-some point lead. They eventually, it started to become wise to not shoot threes because you're up 25 or whatever, and so they didn't do it as much. They got a little reluctant, and Illinois made their run, and they wound up in a game again. I think they've got to be more – they've got to be patient, but they still have to be aggressive. If you're up 24, go ahead and take 20 seconds off the shot clock. But if it's a three-point shot that they're giving you, you still have to take it with the same eagerness.
Mike DeCourcy is our guest. He is with Sporting News. He's on the Payless Liquors hotline. Mike, back to the Sporting News awards that have been named within the last 24 hours, this one within the last 20 minutes or so. Rodney Terry of Texas is the men's college basketball coach of the year. Of course, he did not begin the season as the expected head coach at Texas. We know about what happened with Chris Beard being relieved of his duties. How much of the situation that Rodney Terry walked into influenced that award to him versus the actual season? In other words, I don't follow intimately Texas basketball. Were they expected to have a 23-8 type year, or was it not only the situation that he walked into, but also maximizing his roster towards the award?
Yeah, I think it comes from the fact that he walked into a team that had great capabilities, and then was put in this circumstance, which is a pretty rare circumstance, obviously. And let's hope it never happens again anywhere. But this circumstance was really hard to manage because it was an overnight thing. It wasn't one of those deals where a coach does something out of the boundaries of the NCAA rule book, say, and so everybody's sort of looking around and everybody kind of knows something's going to happen soon. But this wasn't like that. This was arrested in the morning, suspended as soon as UT finds out about it and learns the details. And oh, by the way, you got to play that night, and that was very difficult. And then playing in the most difficult conference in college basketball history. Not the best. This is not, James Worthy and Michael Jordan and Ralph Sampson and Derek Wittenberg in the ACC in '83 or anything like that. We don't have that anymore because of players going through college quickly. But there has never been a league that didn't have a bad team in college basketball history. And this one did not have any. And so you had to be good every night to not lose. And Texas, of course, wasn't good every night. No one in that league was, or someone had been undefeated. But they were good often enough to finish a strong second. They were one bad result, maybe the loss at Texas Tech, away from tying for the championship. They're on pace to get a number 2 seed, which would be one of their best seeds, probably their best seed, I think, since 2006. If they hold that. So it's quite a season under really difficult circumstances for the players to deal with and for the coaches to keep the players' attention and respect.
And this is going to kind of put you on the spot, Mike. I apologize. But is he – I'm trying to think of other guys. I think is it Brian Ellerby? Was that his name that was at Michigan for a while there? Or, I'm trying to think of, is he the first coach in an interim type situation? And I'm looking at the list here of the Sporting News National Coach of the Year winners. Is he the first under that type of situation to walk into an uncertainty in terms of his long-term future and get that award?
Actually, as I was looking at it, Jim Cruz of St. Louis, I think it was 2012-13 or
2013, yep.
Yeah, what happened that year was Rick Majerus was coaching. He was the active coach, and then early fall, he became very ill, and very soon after that passed away. And so Jim took over that year and led them, I think, to around 26 wins, something like that. And so, I mean, obviously a devastating situation for the players to lose their coach, to have him pass away. And Jim did a great job. Obviously people in Indiana know who Jim is, coached at Evansville, played for IU, and he did a wonderful job that year and took them to a very successful season in the Atlantic 10.
Mike DeCourcy is with us here, of course, Big Ten Network, Sporting News. Getting back to the local scene here, Mike, if you examine Purdue and what they need to do here the rest of this week to get a number 1 seed, what do you think they need? Do they need 2? Do they need all 3 Big Ten wins and winning a Big Ten title? And kind of off that, how much does Sunday, from a contingency standpoint, matter when the NCAA Tournament Committee puts a bracket together and you've got that Big Ten championship game butting right up to Selection Sunday?
Yeah, it basically doesn't matter other than you win the championship or lose the championship. Unless you are, let's say, Michigan, which begins the week with the ability to win this tournament and probably the necessity. So I think that for them it matters, and the committee would have to be ready to either put Michigan in or not, if indeed they wouldn't consider Michigan a at-large team by getting to Sunday. And we can't say for sure they wouldn't, but if they were in the position still believing that Michigan was not an at-large team, then they would need to win that game, and then at that point the committee would have to have an alternate bracket ready. If indeed they determined among themselves that Michigan would be an at-large team regardless, and then they might have to make some alterations to who would be in the first 4 or something like that. It's not as complicated as completely redoing the bracket. So that's what they're looking at relative to Purdue. Honestly, what Purdue needs more than their own victories, and I think they would need to at least play through Saturday to be a 1 seed. But what they need even more is for UCLA to lose. Mm-hmm. And from the Boiler standpoint, the sooner the better, whether that would be Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. Thursday's best, Friday's better. Saturday would help, but then would still leave that up in some doubt. So I think that, to me, the resume that Purdue has now is still better. You'll look on my bracket and you'll see UCLA there. Why are they there if you think Purdue's resume is better? The simple answer is part of my job, really most of the job of what I do for Fox, is trying to think like the committee thinks. And it's not always easy. It's hard to know for sure because the committee members change from year to year. But the one thing that I settled on was they're going to want a number 1 seed to come in flying. That's what they want. They want them to look really good coming in. And that hasn't been Purdue over the last 2-3 weeks. It has been UCLA. Has UCLA been aided by the fact that very few of the teams that they're playing are going to be playing in March? Absolutely. But when they were faced with 2 teams that had the opportunity, one for certain in Arizona that's going to be a 2 or 3 seed, and one that's trying to fight their way in and obviously desperate as a result in Arizona State, and they blew them both off the floor. So I think that really changed my view of what the committee would think.
Boy, I'm looking at what you've got for Indiana mapped out right now in your latest on Fox Sports. I might faint at some of these storylines that would be here for Indiana. How about this? Indiana the 4, Rick Pitino's the 13 in the first round. Kentucky would sit there as the 5, a potential second round, and Kelvin Sampson in the Sweet 16. Oh boy. Mike, you literally checked all the entire bingo card is filled with that right there.
And this people think that they sit there and do that. Like, I got to do this every day, and I've got 2 other jobs. So I'm not sitting there thinking, gee, wouldn't it be cool? I don't have the time. Believe me, I barely have time to eat.
I would love it, though.
I'm just saying that, like, people who think that they really sit there in the committee room and try to make those matchups up. At the end of the day, there's a lot of crossover between teams and history and all that, and it's going to happen naturally. I promise you. At no point did I ever think, oh, that would be really good to put Iona in with Indiana because people would get excited about that. Or all that matters to me is, Can Indiana and Kentucky play because they haven't played before? They're not in the same league. And I just need to do that so I can move on and get the next line done, believe me.
Assuming Sunday for the Big Ten Championship, like you said, doesn't matter that much from a seeding standpoint, is the 3 line the highest Indiana can get if the seeds hold and they beat Maryland and beat Northwestern to get to the Big Ten title?
Yeah, I think the 2 line is pretty far out of reach for them with the way they closed, and not because of how they closed, but because of where that left their resume. I think, and even 3, when I look at that, K-State, Marquette, UConn, Gonzaga lock 3 now because they blew out St. Mary's last night. So the other 3 positions, the one advantage IU might have is that UConn and Marquette are playing in the same conference, and therefore only one of them can survive if one of them survives through Saturday night. So that's an advantage. But if, let's just say, Xavier came in and took over those 2 teams and beat them both, I mean, they could take the 3 instead of IU. So I think that the most likely scenario is IU finishing as a 4th. But in order to get that, they need to take care of their business this week in Chicago.
Now, Mike, now that we have got, the mid-majors and the conference tournaments, last night we saw Gonzaga all over St. Mary's, but St. Mary's is in. Were there any quote-unquote bid stealers? If you were a team that's on the bubble, what conference tournaments, if any, because I didn't do like a once-over on all of them, were there any that were bad news for you because a team that otherwise would not have gotten into the tournament won their conference tournament, thus carrying somebody else in?
To date, no. I think the one that's out there that all the bubble teams will be monitoring is Florida Atlantic in the Conference USA tournament. Everybody's going to be pulling for them. That's a bubble team if they go through and take Conference USA. Because that's the one team that probably gets an at-large. College at Charleston, I would have been disappointed had they lost last night and not gotten in because they had 30-plus wins. I don't think the committee values that enough. They look at it, well, it's not a great league, and what are the numbers? And my response to that is, do you know how many 30-win teams go out, don't make your tournament? Not many. And you know what happens when you get a 30-win team in your tournament? Surprisingly, they win more games. If you win 30 and lose 3 or lose 4 in this circumstance, if they had not gotten the automatic bid, they're really good, and they're likely to win because they know how to win. And so I would have been disappointed. But I was pulling for Charleston last night to get that bid because I didn't want to see that happen to them. Florida Atlantic is another team like that. The other concern might be the Mountain West Conference. I think that Nevada and to a greater extent Utah State are not NCAA tournament teams. I am fairly rare among that. I may eventually have to change my mind depending on what they do in their tournament this week, but we can't let the analytics dictate this. People who were arguing with me on Twitter yesterday about Utah State are like, well, yeah, but they're 22 in the net and like 22 in Ken Palm or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, who'd they beat? Who did they beat at all? Anybody? Come on, give me one team. And they played the top 3 teams in their league. They played them all twice. It's a double round robin league. They went 2-4 against the other top teams in their league. They lost 66% of their toughest games. Come on, that's not a tournament team. Why? Because some computer spits out a formula that says they're 22nd in the country? Sometimes there are outliers in every analytic. And in this case, they're an outlier in most of the analytics. They are not a tournament team as we sit here today. If they go out and win the Mountain West tournament, good for them. It'll probably cost a bubble team a spot. But they just don't belong. And I am baffled by the willingness of some basketball fans to turn the entire thing over to a computer formula that they don't even know what goes into it. They don't know what the numbers are. They have a general idea, but they don't know. And so they're going to just say, well, we trust you. We trust your calculations to tell us everything. Come on. If the calculations were always right, the 3 of us could go to Vegas and sit in the sports book and bet the analytics and never lose or almost never lose or always win at least, and always have a winning day, and we'd never have to work again. But it doesn't work like that.
A man with many jobs.
I'd love to never have to work.
A man working a whole lot, especially this time of year. He is Mike DeCourcy. Mike, great stuff. Thanks for hopping on during what is a very busy week for you.
Thanks, fellas.
Mike DeCourcy right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. How about that? Patino, Calipari, Sampson. You imagine? For IU fans, that would be the 3-round run to get to the Elite Eight.
Boy, can you imagine the thrill if they ran through all that, though?
He brought up the bid Steelers. Jake, Oral Roberts at 30-4, 18-0 in their conference. They've lost one game since Thanksgiving.
Yeah, and they're senior laden, I think.
Well, the leading scorer is the kid that got them on the run 2 years ago, the Sweet 16. Remember when they beat Ohio State during the COVID tournament? Asmus, the little guard, he is still there. They did lose to Houston, by the way, by 38.
38?
For what it's worth.
Okay. By the way,
45.
Mark says we have to do a very abbreviated morning checkdown. Watch this.
The Morning Checkdown. On 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Tonight in college basketball, actually this afternoon, Butler taking on St. John's. That is at the first round in New York City of the Big East Tournament. That game gets underway at 3 o'clock. Notre Dame will have plenty of time to watch that because they do not have another game to prepare for after losing last night 67-64 to Virginia Tech. And in doing that, not only did it end Mike Bray's run in South Bend, it also meant that the Fighting Irish did not get a chance to watch Steph Curry score 40 last night in the NBA. He was the leading scorer on the night, but it was not enough as Golden State was defeated by Oklahoma City 137-128. Washington, Charlotte, Orlando, Philadelphia, Brooklyn, the Mavericks, and the Lakers all joined all were winners last night in the association. Anything else, Kevin?
National Draft Voice. He is Matt Miller from ESPN. Brilliant, by the way, on that.
Thank you
very nice.
much.
Pacers tomorrow, back in action. Practice today. And again, tonight on our airwaves, Ohio State, Wisconsin, 6:15. Minnesota, Nebraska at 9 as the Big Ten Tournament gets underway. But Matt Miller, ESPN NFL Draft Analyst. He was at the Combine all week long. We'll talk to him next here.
Guys, solve your ED today with an intimacy guarantee. Only at the Indianapolis Men's Clinic. If you don't perform, you don't pay. Call the Indianapolis Men's Clinic at 999-9000. 999-9000.
You had a solid retirement dream. Sell your home in a few years, bank the equity, downsize, and travel. But inflation and recession has you wondering if all your hard-earned equity will still be there. What if you could recession-proof your equity right now? You can with TrueHold. TrueHold will buy your home for its best current value before a recession can erode it. You get to bank all the cash now and live in your home for as long as you want. And TrueHold covers all property taxes, insurance, repairs, and maintenance. And since TrueHold pays your home's current value in cash now, it's yours to do whatever you'd like. Don't wait for inflation, recession, and interest rates to erode your home's value. Visit TrueHold.com and discover how much TrueHold will buy your home for today, based on its best current value, not what's coming. So call 1-855-300-9993 or visit TrueHold.com. The smarter, faster way to cash out on your home's value without having to move. That's TrueHold.com.
Edwards goes inside, another slam dunk! Bring down the house at Market Square Arena. The Giants have done it. Another steal by Marion. We're down to 4. We're down to 3. We're down to 2. We're down to 1. Marion wins the state. Write it down. They are the legends of high school basketball. Edwards, Keys, Ewer, Persinger, and Jones have done it. They are the state champions for 1987.
That, of course, Jim Brunner on the call in 1987 when Marion completed their Purple Rain trifecta, 85, 86, and 87. The state champions, Jay Edwards, had 35 in the state championship game. Lyndon Jones had 23. They were, of course, co-Mr. Basketballs in 1987 before going on, Lyndon Jones, to a 4-year career for Bob Knight at IU. Jay Edwards with the greatest 2 years in the history of basketball and also becoming the greatest player in the eyes of young adolescent Jake Query. Edwards was unbelievable, got drafted by the LA Clippers after becoming the Big Ten most valuable player in his sophomore year at Indiana. And the reality is there have been a lot that have chased that sort of high school glory, Kevin, since then in Marion's dynamic three-peat, but you still have your chance to go out and see what could be the future stars playing today.
It's a giddy Jake Query talking about
Hell yes.
Jay Edwards there. Sounded like me with Luke Herringody. Yes, you can do that. Regional weekend is here. And again, the regionals have changed a little bit. Just one game this weekend, but at each site, you're going to get 2 games played. The semi-state will have 2 games starting next week. The Southport Regional, it is loaded. 1 o'clock, it's going to be Brownsburg and New Pal. And then at 4 o'clock, it's the defending state champs Cathedral taking on undefeated Ben Davis and what probably is the best matchup in the state this weekend. Of course, you can head up to the Berry Bowl in Logansport, the Hatchet House down in Washington, or over to Newcastle in the world's largest high school gym. Don't miss another comparison to attending an IHSA basketball tournament game in person.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan, your home for Indy sports. Now with even more ways to listen.
Listen on air.
Online at 1075thefan.com.
And on our free app.
Stay connected to all things Indy sports, including the latest news, show blogs, and catch up on what you've missed with our podcast.
We're never more than just a click away.
Download our app at Google Play and on the App Store. From your home for Indy sports.
93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
It's Kevin and Query on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
ESPN draft analyst Matt Miller going to join us here in a couple of minutes. We will push the pop quiz to close out today's show.
I believe I see Scotty rolling his eyes over there.
Scotty decked out in Colts gear. I believe Matt Miller, a fan of Anthony Richardson to the Colts. So we'll chat about that with him. And again, I am curious a little bit about Hendon Hooker. I feel like he's a forgotten man, a couple knocks on age and ACL. So we'll touch on that with Matt Miller here coming up in just a second.
It is interesting that you wonder where, I guess the better question, Kevin, would be where would Hendon Hooker be had he not gotten hurt? You know, how much of that is detriment of age and how much of it is health?
Matt Miller joins us now. Again, the great draft analyst with ESPN. Just spent a week in Indianapolis. We'll chat all about that with him right now. And let's start there, Matt. I know it's not the quarterback on the top of everyone's mind. We'll get to that one. But Hendon Hooker, to me, is such an interesting case study in the age, the ACL, the offense he came from in college. How do you view Hendon Hooker within this quarterback draft class?
Yeah, guys, he would be a first-round pick were it not for the ACL injury. Like, even understanding that he just turned 25 years old, I think the way he's played over the last 2 years, I don't think has received as much attention as it should have. We got caught up in that. You know, the first year was, all right, is this the real deal? You know, after he transferred in from Virginia Tech, I think to some degree the scheme has had people discount what he was able to do. But, I mean, no matter how good your scheme is, he threw 5 interceptions and 58 touchdowns the last 2 years. Like, I don't care how good your scheme is. I don't even know if I care how good your level of competition is when your touchdown to interceptions 58-5. I mean, that's crazy. And then obviously, you know, he brings an element to the ground game as well. He's a big quarterback. He's smart. He had success at Virginia Tech and didn't turn the ball over there either. I think that's something that people have to go back and look at too. So he would be in that first round group for me. Probably not up there with the big four that are going to go super early just because he is older. That would be the only thing that would knock him down. But man, if you took away the knee injury, 18 to the Detroit Lions, 19 to Tampa, 20 to Seattle, I feel like he would probably be in that range right there. 29 to the Saints would probably be his floor.
Matt, I'm going to ask a question that I've asked to a couple of people this week, but I value your input on this. Are we looking at an NFL draft this year with 4 names at the quarterback position that are up there towards the top because, A, they are 4 dynamic talents that are worthy of being towards the top in any given year, or B, because it's a year where there are a plethora of teams needing quarterback and a void elsewhere around, and so by default they have become the cream of the crop?
I think it's a little of both. That's a really good question. I like the way you set that up. I do think to some degree it is like Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud are good. They've been good for 2 years. We know who they are, right? We've been watching them a long time. We know who they are. I think those are the 2 where they would be up there in any given draft class. They both would have been the number 1 quarterback last year. I think if you go back and are able to somehow put them in the 2021 draft, They're not Trevor Lawrence, but they're probably ahead of Zach Wilson. For me, they would have been. They're ahead of Trey Lance, certainly. They're ahead of Mac Jones. I actually really liked Justin Fields. I don't know that I would be able to jump them over Justin Fields, but I think they're good. Anthony Richardson and Will Levis are very interesting prospects, and they're players that I do believe are worthy of investing a pick and time and development in. But those are the guys where I worry. Are we focusing on the positives and ignoring the negatives, which, that is a huge part of player evaluation, is what can they do versus what can't they do. But if we see 4 quarterbacks in the top 5, to me that will be artificial inflation of a player's stock because of the position he plays.
Okay. Just a couple years ago, 1, 2, 3, those 3 quarterbacks went.
And it hasn't worked out very well.
No. Certainly not the guy going number 2 in Zach Wilson.
Right.
Matt, you touched on something here on Twitter that I want you to elaborate on for our listeners. Again, Matt Miller is our guest on the Payless Liquors Hotline at NFL Draft Scout on Twitter. I also think, this is what you tweeted, the strong showing at the Combine by the 4 quarterback weakens the value of the number 1 overall pick. Houston and Indianapolis probably not feeling as much pressure this week as they were to jump up the board. And I don't disagree with that. I think Chris Ballard looks at it and probably covets what he would maybe have to give up to move up. They may still do that. We'll see. But do you believe that Indianapolis is less aggressive at 4? And if they have to select the 4th quarterback off the board or 3rd, you believe it would be which one?
I don't think Indy has to be as aggressive. I'll say that. I don't think there's the pressure to get to number 1 today like there was a week ago. I really don't. Why? Who are you jumping? So, let's say you love Bryce Young. You believe he's the guy. Is he that much better than C.J. Stroud to where you feel like you have to give up future first-round picks? To me, the difference between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud is not future first-round picks, especially on a roster that needs a left tackle, that needs another wide receiver, that needs a pass rusher. The Colts are not 1 quarterback away. So, to me, it's not worth the future picks, right? So, if they stay at 4, so much hinges on what happens at 1. But if you stay at 4, I think you have a realistic shot at Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. Now, for Indy, I think Will Levis is more intriguing because he could play right away. And I think you have an owner that is very impatient and wants to win right now. So I don't think you're in a spot where you can say, all right, let's bring in Jacoby Brissett and draft Anthony Richardson, and we've got now a 5-year plan. I think it's more, hey, we got to win. We got to win quickly. So if you're staying at 4, assuming somebody trades to 1 for Bryce Young, assuming that the Texans would take C.J. Stroud at 2, you're looking at Will Levis at 4.
Okay, Matt Miller's with us, ESPN draft analyst at NFL Draft Scout on Twitter. Matt, feel free to, rip this, but when you look at the 3 quarterbacks, and let's put Levis to the side just for the exercise, if you're going to go play a game tomorrow, would Bryce Young make the most sense? If you were going to bet on the safest pick for the next decade, would C.J. Stroud make the most sense? And then lastly, if you're betting on the most potential, is that Anthony Richardson? It is kind of boiling it down to those 3 guys. Is that how you view those 3? Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bryce Young is – I love Bryce Young, and I don't ever want to sound like I'm discounting him. He's my top quarterback. He's my number 2 overall player. I love Bryce Young, but he is small, and how long can he hold up? I think for more Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson, the situation matters more. I think C.J. Stroud's going to be just fine wherever he lands because he's big. He's got a good, not great arm, but it's good. He's got great accuracy. He has a really good understanding of just how to throw a catchable football and get the most out of his weapons. But I do think you put them in the right silos of, if I needed to go out and win tomorrow, I would take Bryce Young. He carried a bad Alabama team this year. I think people overlook that they just hear Alabama and think, oh my God, he was loaded. There's not another Alabama player other than Jahmyr Gibbs, a running back, who will be selected in the top 100 picks on offense. It was just not a good offense this year. He really carried them. They would have been 6-6 without him, probably. I don't want to discount Bryce Young just because he came in at 5'10", and just because we know he's going to struggle to play around 200 pounds. He's really, really good. But to me, the difference between he and C.J. Stroud is not that big.
Matt, this year's draft in terms of overall talent is richest at what position?
Oh, wow. Corner, probably. I think cornerback is really, really deep. We're going to see a lot of 5 maybe corners in the first round. Tight end is crazy deep, too. We might not see the run on those guys early, but I think there are like 6 or 7 starting caliber tight ends in this class. Those would be the 2 where I feel really good about it. Offensive tackle's pretty good, not great. Quarterback I like 5 of them. After that, there's a pretty big drop-off. But if I would say what's the strength, I would say corner, tight end, and defensive end are your big groups in this draft that are super talented, not just at the top, but really all the way through.
When you say 5 at quarterback, by the way, we're talking about the 4 that everybody, Levis, Richardson, Young, and Stroud, and then I'm assuming Hooker's the 5th.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. The position that is the driest this year, the position that you do not want to have on your roster a need for going into this draft is what?
Defensive tackle. Jalen Carter is a top 5 talent. We're going to see what happens with his off-field situation. It's going to definitely raise a lot of questions, and I don't have those answers yet. We have about 50 days to figure those out. But I think after that, you get into Kalijah Cansey from Pitt, who is undersized, at 6'1", 280 pounds. You get into Brian Brzee from Clemson, who, last 2 years have really been a wash for him because of, a torn ACL. His sister passed away, and then he had a kidney infection that's just really made, his off-field situation almost, impossible the last few years. So after Jalen Carter, there's a pretty big drop-off.
Again, it's Matt Miller from ESPN. You've heard him on with us before. Outstanding draft coverage at NFL Draft Scout on Twitter. Matt, I want to ask you about a couple of local guys. Michael Mayer, the Notre Dame product, probably didn't light the combine on fire, but just strikes me as just a damn good football player. And then not sure how much you've dove into Aidan O'Connell from Purdue. Not the most fleet of foot, but certainly had some nice success in his collegiate days at Purdue. Any thoughts on Mayer and or Aidan O'Connell?
Mayer's still my top tight end. Like you said, no, the combine wasn't great. No one should have expected it to be great. That's not his game, right? I mean, he's a 250-pound inline tight end. He's not going to blow up the combine. But I'll say this, he didn't drop a single ball in his workout and looked great in run blocking drills. Like, that's who he is. If you want a fast tight end, draft Dalton Kincaid. If you want somebody that you never know when he's on the field what he's going to be. There are some tight ends, you put them out there, it's like, oh, okay, they're throwing the ball because he's on the field. Like Mike DeCourcy. Michael Mayer is the type of dude, you could put him out there and the defense has no idea what you're doing because he's so versatile. So I'm still a big fan of his. I still think he should be a first-round pick. Aidan O'Connell, you're right. He's not going to blow you away with his arm strength. He's not going to blow you away with his foot speed, but he's incredibly accurate. I mean, I love his story, to go from a walk-on to becoming so prolific as a passer in college and to really – at a program that I think it's fair to say was struggling when he got there. He's played really well. He and Charlie Jones, one of my favorite duos this past year, what they were able to do. So I think Aidan has a shot to be a top 100 draft pick. He's got a shot to work his way into, would it shock me if in 2 years he's a starter? Absolutely not, because he's just so accurate. He's so smart. He plays with such great touch. There's always going to be a need for a player like that when maybe some of the athletic guys that we're hoping develop don't. We see teams fall back to the Aidan O'Connells all the time.
Matt, we'll end with this. Jake, my co-host, and myself, we are obsessed with the city of Indianapolis. We think every event, frankly, should be held here for the rest of time. So you're coming on Indianapolis radio, and now I'm like, please talk nice about our city. Luckily, you did that yourself on Twitter just a few days ago. Why do you feel like there's just this overwhelming consensus on an annual basis, whether it's GMs, coaches, or media members, that they just laud Indianapolis for their ability to host the Combine?
Well, I mean, Indy is a convention town. You guys have the amazing, ICC, which is phenomenal. It's huge. I've been lost in there multiple times. But I also think what the NFL needs to remember, and I hope they ask some of us who actually do this for a living, is Indianapolis is the only city in America, maybe outside of New York, in my opinion at least, that you can walk everywhere. It is a truly walkable city, and you have the hotels for meetings and dinners, and you have the hotels and the restaurants, and everything is like where you need it right there. But also, I don't want to go to LA and spend my week in a car. Like, I really don't. I've been to LA for events before, and I spend like 3 hours a day in a car. Who has time for that with all the stuff we have to do at the combine? Do you want players, sitting in a car? I mean, maybe they can have them stay right at SoFi, but they're not going to put the 8,000 media members that are now at the combine there as well. So to me, Indy is perfect for the combine. It's why you guys do such a great job with, Big Ten championships as well. Is you can put a lot of people in a very small area and you never feel cramped. And also, like, those of us who work in and around the NFL, we are creatures of habit. I go to the same restaurants the same nights every year in Indianapolis, and I'm great with that. I like that I don't have to think, like, oh, man, I don't know my way around here. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? Where can I go to bump into the scouts and agents so that I can do my job? We would have to completely start over. So not only is Indy great at hosting the combine, but for selfish reasons, I know my way around Indy, and I really, really, really don't want to have to learn another place.
Hell yeah.
Standing ovation Matt Miller is getting right now from ourselves and certainly our listening audience. Favorite non-St. Elmo restaurant, Matt?
Prime. Prime is actually like my night two in Indy every year. I go to Prime. I love it. Elmo's is, you got to go, right? You got to get the shrimp cocktail. You got to do it. I think Prime does. They do a great job start to finish. It's fantastic. You can't go wrong, though. You really can't. I think this year I did. I don't know. I don't want to give out free advertising on your show. I did a lot of the steak places. None of them disappointed. I'll tell you that.
I love it. Matt, thanks, man. Great stuff. I know it's been a busy decompressing from the combine a little bit, so appreciate you making time for us.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you.
Matt Miller, ESPN, right there on the Payless Liquors hotline. Pop quiz time, 317-239-1070. We'll go rapid fire on the pop quiz to close it out. Give us a call. The Winter Blues are almost behind us, and we can't wait to get out of the house and be more active. That sounds great, but your achy joints don't agree. Well, time to do something about it. It's Kevin Bowen. You could stop with the steroids, stop with the possible surgery chatter. Now there's a better way to get lasting relief, and it's from QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in regenerative medicine. This exciting approach uses healing properties from your own body, highly concentrated, and then placed directly into your achy joint. It can restore and repair that damaged tissue and get you moving again without pain, knee pain, back pain, shoulder, hip pain. This patient satisfaction reports are incredible, and there's no downtime. You can learn more about this wildly popular, all-natural, alternative way to get lasting pain relief with no surgery and no drugs via QC Kinetics. The call is free. The consultation is free. 317-559-PAIN. Locations at Eagle Creek, Greenwood, and Carmel. A free consultation. You got nothing to lose, and the timing is right for you to enjoy the best time of the year. QC Kinetics, 317-559-PAIN.
When you ask people here what's the one thing that makes Diamonds Direct their favorite jeweler, for some, it's the unbeatable pricing. We get it through our direct importer, no middleman connections, the foundation of our business since day one. For others, it's uncompromising quality, from hand-selected diamonds to handcrafted designer rings, only the best of the best. Some people put selection at the top of their list, as Diamonds Direct offers up to 30 times the options you expect from a typical jewelry retailer. For some, it's our luxurious showroom with diamond experts who genuinely care about your experience and happiness and who are empowered to do whatever it takes for you. Others rave about Diamonds Direct's unmatched warranties and guarantees and an extraordinary 110% diamond upgrade promise. But you know the most often answer we get when asking what makes Diamonds Direct stand out? It's not one thing. It's everything. Diamonds Direct. Value, luxury, choices, and confidence. Get directions, showroom hours, and more at diamondsdirect.com.
Bowling, 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 keep them balls a-rolling. Bowling, bowling, bowling. Royal Pin.
Looking for family fun or a night out with friends? Royal Pin Entertainment has you covered. Skip the line and make a reservation online at royalpin.com. Looking to host an event or have a small group? Royal Pin is here to help. Contact their sales team to get a deal on parties of 20 or more. Just email events@royalpin.com. With 3 convenient locations around Indianapolis, Royal Pin offers bowling, laser tag, mini golf, and arcades. Awesome family fun. Call your local center at 317-465-8484 or go to royalpin.com to get the ball rolling with Royal Pin.
Set them up, knock them down, send them flying, spinning round.
Call 317-465-8484 or go to royalpin.com today.
Royal Pin, bowling, bowling. Royal Pin.
I switched to Boost Mobile and got a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone. Want to know the best part?
It was free?
Nope.
The fact that it's on America's largest 5G networks?
Nope. It's the ding.
Oh, yeah. Love the ding.
Right? It's all about the ding. It's the dingarooski, the dingaroner, the ring-a-ding-ding.
Unleash your power to save with Boost. Get a free Samsung Galaxy A23 5G phone when you switch. Boost Mobile. Unleash your power.
And the ding.
Limited time offer. New customers only. Available on select networks. 5G not available everywhere. One device per line. Tax excluded. Additional restrictions apply. See your local Boost Mobile store for details.
I can't believe tax season is here already. Look at all this info I have to enter.
Phil's small accounting firm is growing in numbers.
Why didn't I take that typing class in high school?
A data entry specialist could really help him in a crunch.
I got blisters on my fingers.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Are your ankylosing spondylitis or AS symptoms still not under control?
Stairs? No way.
Is your treatment still not working?
Mornings? Moving? No.
Tired of saying no? Talk to your rheumatologist about a different treatment option. Visit confrontas.com, and next time, you may just say,
Why, yes, I will go for that run.
Visit confrontas.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
The Pacers welcome the Houston Rockets to the Fieldhouse tomorrow evening at 6:30 on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Have you studied? Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with Kevin and Query. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
Kevin is super excited because there's a Notre Dame basketball question.
Let's go, Scotty. After the most brutal pop quiz in the history of the pop quiz yesterday, I think today's doable. Very.
Yeah, Scotty yesterday was...
In a foul mood, I would say, from that pop quiz.
The new favorite to pick number one in the NFL draft, according to Vegas?
Carolina.
Plus 125. That's almost even money. Carolina Panthers.
Really?
Boy, what are they giving up? You got to be throwing in a couple players then at that point.
A haul to go from
Brian Burns, maybe.
But they would have gotten
end.
some. They probably got some assets in the Christian McCaffrey trade.
They have an additional second, but it's not like they got multiple first. Right. Colts plus 275. Texans plus 290. A big drop to the Bears, the current number one, at plus 600. And
nobody
the
talks about Arizona. Is Arizona going to stick where they are?
I think if anything, they move back. You know, obviously they've been pretty public about sticking with Kyler Murray. Right. So I think if anything, move back. All right, Mark, bring somebody on for the pop quiz.
Okay, we'll go fast fingers, which is Joe.
Joe, what's up?
Hey, good morning.
Joe, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Joe, you ever called for the pop quiz?
No, never.
I think this is one of the easiest in the history of the pop quiz.
Joe, you sound like a nice fella, Joe.
I'm counting on it.
How old a fella are you?
I'm 44 years old.
44-year-old Joe. Okay. And that would mean my quick math is going to tell me that you must have graduated from high school somewhere around, I don't know, what, like 97, somewhere in there?
97. You got it.
And then, Joe, that would be what high school?
South Adams High School.
Okay.
Perfect. We've got a Notre Dame question to lead us off, Joe. This is great.
Who is the most famous graduate of South Adams High School?
Oh, man. I have no idea. That's a good question. We've had some athletes, play D3 and NAIA and stuff like that.
And Joe. Question. Yeah, Joe graduate.
That's right.
Joe, all right, let's lead off. Jake, you want to start off the pop quiz?
Oh, you got to go with the Notre Dame question there, right?
I'm trying to be humble there, but thank you for passing that back to me. Mike Bray, coach's final game for Notre Dame last night, Joe. Who did Bray succeed as head coach of the Fighting Irish?
Oh, I thought I was going to get a multiple choice.
Boy, I was hoping the South Bend Adams and you would know this, but
it's not.
Probably shows you
he's from South Adams, which is
I thought he'd been South Bend.
That's in
Adams.
Bern, Indiana, correct?
Got it.
Yes.
Apologies there. Was it A, Matt Doherty, B, John McLeod, C, Johnny D, or D, Digger Phelps?
I'm going to go with A.
Not many people have their fingers on the pulse of Notre Dame basketball like Kevin Bowen, so I'd pump the brakes there.
Joe, for question number 2.
That'd be an easy answer.
Within 10, can you tell me the enrollment of South Adams High School according to Wikipedia, which is all-knowing?
400.
That's 347. All right, so I'll give you the real question number 2. Which of the following NFL players was not designated his team's franchise player this offseason? Evan Ingram, Josh Jacobs, Daniel Jones, or Tony Pollard?
Daniel Jones.
Okay.
Nice. All right, number 3, Joe. The Ravens placed a non-exclusive franchise tag on quarterback Lamar Jackson, meaning he can negotiate with other teams, with the Ravens maintaining the right to match any offer. It's the 6th time a quarterback has received the non-exclusive tag. Who was the last QB to receive a non-exclusive tag and stay with his current team? A, Drew Brees, B, Kirk Cousins, C, Jim Harbaugh, or D, Matt Castle?
I'm going to go with B.
Question number 4. On this day in 1971, Muhammad Ali suffered his first loss as a professional boxer. What smoking boxer was the first to defeat him as a pro? Was it Ken Norton, Jerry Quarry, Leon Spinks, or Joe Frazier?
Joe Frazier.
That's a big hint after going 3 for 3 to begin it. All right, Joe, 1 year ago today, this player agreed to a new contract which made him the highest paid player in the NFL for the 2022 season. Can you name him?
Can I have the question one more time?
Yeah, 1 year ago today, this player agreed to a new contract which made him the highest paid player in the NFL for the 2022 season. Can you name him? Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, or Kyler Murray?
Deshaun Watson.
South Adams is the Starfires, is that right?
Yes.
What is a Starfire? Is that just a star that's illuminated with fire?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's just sort of a shooting star.
It's kind of a cool name, actually. You know what I mean?
Great 3-point team. Shooting team. Can't say I've ever been to Bern, Indiana. Been to Bluffton.
Where is Bern? That's south in Adams County, right?
Yeah, south of Fort Wayne, about an hour.
Okay, fair enough. You did pretty
Great
well.
work, Joe.
You did a nice job. You went 4 for 4 to start things out, meaning that you had Matt Doherty, you had Daniel Jones, you had Kirk Cousins, and you had Smoking Joe Frazier.
Kick some ass.
Number 5, a little tricky, Scotty. Little tricky. 1 year ago today, this player agreed to a new contract, which made him the highest paid player in the NFL for the 2022 season. Remember, they had Deshaun Watson's cap hit for
3 weeks
2022.
ago, he was the highest player in the NFL, right?
For 2022, they had his cap hit very low due to the suspension. Aaron Rodgers, $50.3 million.
You blew it!
Joe, good work.
You don't get to come back tomorrow. You don't even get a lousy copy of our home game. You're a complete loser.
South Adams is located in one of the more remote locations of the state.
Think so?
You think about it, an hour south of Fort Wayne, and I mean, guess a couple.
You go between Marion and Fort Wayne. You're just kind of in.
It's like a triangle of Fort Wayne, Marion, and Muncie.
Back at it tomorrow.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Podcast will be up